right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to Professor Sharif. I'm Shalini, the host for the day, and let me warmly welcome you to this webinar, which is organized by the SLIIT Business School, which is focused on technological innovation-driven industrialization for sustainable economic development. So sustainable economic development, that is economic growth, which sustains the natural resources as well as the environment for future generations, is a key concern in the contemporary society. And of course, on the other hand, technological innovation is one of the key drivers which drives economic prosperity as well as which generates employment. So this webinar is going to be focused around these concepts, and I'm sure it is going to be a very insightful and thought-provoking session for everyone gathered here today. So without further ado then, to start off this session, I would like to invite Professor Samantha Telichagoda, the Dean of the SLIIT Business School, to deliver the welcome address. Professor, over to you.
Thank you, Shalini. Good day to all of you. So first, I would like to welcome Professor Nawaz Sharif, our key resource person, who is joining from United States of America. Professor, so we welcome you for this special webinar. And the next would like to welcome Professor Lakshman Ratnayaka, our Chancellor and the Chairman of SLIIT, for this special session. And the next, I would like to welcome Professor Mohan Monashing. Professor Monashing is the chairman of Monashing Institute of Development. I would like to welcome him as well. And then he's joining as a guest of honor, and the next guest of honor is Dr. Harsha Subasinghe. Dr. Harsha Subasinghe is also with us now. He's CEO, Cordian Group of Company. I welcome Dr. Harsha Subasinghe as well. And next, our guest of honor, Mr. Suren Fernando. Suren Fernando, I want to welcome for you this. I welcome you for this webinar. He's CEO of Mass Holding Private Limited. In the meantime, all the members of business organization in Sri Lanka who join with us today for this webinar, I welcome. And also the staff and the student of SLIIT who join with this webinar. I'm going to actually very briefly conclude this welcome speech. It's not a welcome speech, actually. It's a small, maybe a note welcoming all of the people for this webinar on technological innovation-driven industrialization for sustainable economic development. I think you know SLIIT Business School is always preparing, organizing these type of session for the business community in Sri Lanka. So this is another attempt made by SLIIT Business School. With the warm welcome for all the people who join with us today, I know the most of the people are waiting to join within the couple of minutes. So with that, I conclude my welcome speech, because I think we have a limited time today. So we need to move forward with the key people so we have today. So thank you very much for joining with us.
Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to invite Professor Lakshman Ratnayaka, the Chancellor of Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology, to make the opening remark. Professor, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shalini. Good morning, Professor Nawaz Sharif. Good evening to all the others. Very late evening to Professor Ramanathan. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to give some opening remarks for this August gathering. Well, I came to know Professor Nawaz Sharif, and of course, my wife knew Professor Ramanathan for a very long period of time, because they were together in Peradeniya campus. But Professor Ramanathan and Professor Nawaz Sharif especially contributed immensely to develop the management of technology department at the University of Moratuwa. We had a grant or aid from the Asian Development Bank. And we were wondering how we can establish a management skills among the engineering undergraduates. Then, of course, these two gentlemen came to our rescue and gave some very good, excellent, I would say, advice as to what we should teach and do research in management of technology. That's how this particular department was born in early 2000 with the assistance from the Asian Development Bank. And also, of course, from Sri Lankan side, we had Mr. Piyal Hennayaka and others who have studied at AIT, giving us a tremendous support. So, ladies and gentlemen, in a similar way, I joined the SLIIT as the chairman after my retirement from University of Moratuwa in 2014. And at SLIIT, our main focus is or was to develop the information technology sector in Sri Lanka. While doing that, we found that there are many gaps in our industry. One such gap was to train high-level management of accountancy and other related professionals, business degrees in Sri Lanka. So we embarked on a program about 15 years ago. So we have a very young faculty at SLIIT. So we have taken great strides in developing the SLIIT Business School as one of the good schools in Sri Lanka, but we want to go beyond Sri Lankan standards, beyond the typical way of conducting a business degree. So we have embarked on many innovative ideas in providing teaching and also providing a curriculum that suits the local industry, especially the private sector industry, so that our graduates will be able to help the economy. All of us in the education sector believe that our main job is to make sure that the graduates who pass out from Sri Lankan universities, Sri Lankan higher education institutes, contribute to the economic development of this country. That is our primary aim. So in our small way, we are doing our best to improve the economy of Sri Lanka. So at SLIIT, we have an intake of about 3,000 students in a given year. We have become a large higher education institute. We have over 11,000 students currently studying at SLIIT in various disciplines like information technology. Business school is the second largest. Then the third largest is engineering. Then we have architecture, quantitative surveying, law, allied health sciences, humanities, education, and so on. So we have expanded a lot, even though we started in a very humble manner with 300 students in year 1999. But now we are taking about 3,000 students. We don't get any grants or any assistance from the government of Sri Lankan Treasury, but we totally depend on the student fees, and we do not charge excessive amount of fees because SLIIT is a not-for-profit. It's like a trust or a charity. So all the excess, not that we don't make profits, we do make profits. So all the profits go to the development of programs, starting new programs, and creating a better environment for our students to enjoy their university life at this particular campus, Malawi. And we are building another large campus in Kandy. In another 2 years' time, we will have a similar setup in Kandy next to the Pallikali Cricket Stadium. So these are some of our plans. And these kind of webinars will help to refresh our minds and also to know what's happening in the rest of the world, especially people like Professor Nawaz Sharif and Professor Ramanathan will give us the things that are happening in the world. And also, we have invited very eminent persons like Professor Monashing, then we have Dr. Harsha Subhasinghe and Mr. Suren Fernando, who are the industry leaders in today's context in the private sector. So we will get a lot of ideas, inputs from them also, which will be very useful to our staff and students to develop their abilities and also think about the future. Because we expect our students, our teachers, especially the young teachers, to think for the next 30 years, 40 years, as to how the Sri Lankan economy, the world economy will change, the world environment will change, the business trade will change. So therefore, this kind of webinars will expose us to a better exposure. So with these few remarks, even though this is not a vote of thanks, I wish to thank all the resource persons, Professor Sharif, Dr. Ramanathan, Mr. Suren Fernando, Professor Monashing, and Dr. Harsha Subhasinghe for giving your valuable time, spending your time to prepare for these presentations and enlightening our staff and students regarding the future. And I also wish to thank Professor Nimal Rajapaksa, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, who also spent a certain amount of time with me in discussing these aspects. He is flying from US, Canada to Sri Lanka at the moment, so he won't be able to come. And also especially thank Mr. Piale and Naika for helping us to organize this seminar. Thank you very much and all the best to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ratnayaka. It is indeed a great honor to have with us today our guests of honor for the session, Dr. Harsha Subhasinghe, Mr. Suren Fernando, and Professor Mohan Munasinghe. So we would like to hear a few words from them as well. So first of all, let me cordially invite Dr. Harsha Subhasinghe, the President and CEO of Cogin Group of Companies, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
So good afternoon. So instead of me going through some theory part of it, I thought that I will give you the practical part of it, of what we do as a company for sustainable. So I'll try to run some of these.
Oh, my speech is over.
Okay. So I'll share my screen. So I think you all can have a look at it. But because of the timeline, I'll run through as fast as possible. So we as a company, we are actually quite interesting in a way. I started the company in 2000, and it was a company that myself started, and then later on, when I started in Sri Lanka, I got 3 computers from who my mother bought, and then since then we have a growth from 2 people to 10 people to 20 people to, and today it's only 2019, but today we have about 600 employees. But all throughout, what we did is, the interesting part of the company was that it was the product that we innovate. So since the beginning, we want to find solutions for the travel industry. So in there, we look at the whole industry in a completely different perspectives. So whatever they've been doing all these years. So we developed technologies that nobody else has. So whenever you started off a company in Europe with no money and nothing, so only thing we had was a product. So in order to make a product, you had to make that particular product to become extremely innovative. because we don't have no backing at all. So when I was the only person who was a programmer and also the developer plus the maintenance engineer and also the sales guy and the marketing guy and everything, it was very difficult to start something like that with nothing. So all throughout these last 20 years, is one of these companies never got invested by anybody at all. So zero investment. So every single thing is the products that we made, and unfortunately we made products that lasted for about 10 years of innovation. So whenever big companies and large companies look at our products and they think, wow, this particular solution will sustain our business for the next 10 years to 15 years to 20 years. So we look at some of the technology stack, very early stages, and we call service-oriented architecture. We use that one in 2000 and writing our own references as well. So likewise, because of this serious amount of new technologies that we have introduced, we've been considered and recognized as a company that that people wanted to put the trust on, because they want to make sure that they will have sustainability using new technologies that comes and emerge into the market. So likewise, in 2005 onwards, we tried to sign up most of the billion-dollar companies and blue chip companies. And today we have a huge portfolio of clients that we have we can't tell the names, but they are all multi-billion-dollar companies. So we with one product that we create on the tour operating market, we make sure that we innovate in such manner that it could cater for the airlines and the cruisers and the theme parks and tour operators and DMCs. So we make sure the same product will be catered for different markets, and we capture a huge amount of clients on those kind of markets. Then with our business model, we have a kind of sustainable business model. When they grow, we also grow with them, because we charge them a booking fee for every single person or passenger that travels in there. So with that, what we did was we wanted to go there and invest our money instead of taking that one as a dividend. So we invested quite a lot of money into different technologies. So in there, my passion is to invest the money on the sustainability, environmental sustainability, because I was one of the advocates for a very long time, trying to make this country or make this world to become zero emission. So in order to give a big impact, we started developing so this is actually gives you the different countries that we operate today. So that we want to make sure that we will go there and showcase the power and the technologies that we have. So when I actually see some of the slides and screenshots, we cannot be considered as I don't like a country like that to say that the developing countries should do this and developing countries should do that and developing countries should copy these countries and stuff like that. It's not the case. We never knew how to build cars. We never knew how to build supercars. So I got one person, he's still with me here, and then I said, let's go there and build a supercar. And he said, okay. Fortunately, he said, okay. And then we said, well, let's start it. And since then, we start developing and we start learning it. So it is a type of car that it travels 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, and the production car will be at about 2.6 seconds. And this is a car that every single part is developed by ourselves. So interiors to the motor controllers, to battery management packs, to batteries, to even the center consoles, to every single part is designed, developed, and manufactured by ourselves, including these leather interiors, or you call the synthetic leather interiors, and all that electronic that goes with it. So this was a big success, and recently in 2020, we were the first ever car to go there and showcase a supercar from Sri Lanka, or whatever the car from Sri Lanka in the history of Sri Lanka. So that was a great achievement for us. So that attracted a lot of people, because we can have technologies that we develop technologies, and then these are all carbon fiber based bodies, and there are a lot of technologies behind it. So for that, those kind of technologies, we did not learn from any of this institute. We got the fresh graduates and we taught them to learn these things, read the papers, read what the competitors do, and how do you get these things done. So nobody has any experience of developing carbon fiber body or carbon fiber itself. And then we had to find all that things out for the last 6 years, and finally we built this particular supercar. So through that, we had a lot of technological knowledge. And then we have a lot of visibility, and the whole world start to know about what we do, and they trusted that we are one of the companies that who has cutting edge technologies. And then we realized that, okay, now we know about this, the electric vehicles, and we know how to make them, and we have a sustainable model. So we want to make this like Zonda and Koenigsegg and stuff like that. We make about 12 to 15 cars a year. So we don't need a huge amount of robotics to manufacture, because we only make exclusive cars, ranging from $1.2 million to $2 million or so. So that billionaires, they want to have a car that nobody else has. So it was pretty much tailor-made for those guys. So using this the model, and then we were the very first people to jump into this electrical arena 7 years ago, before a lot of other people. And then we realized that I don't want to go to the videos because I don't have much of time. And then we realized that we can make retrofits, because if you want to change the environment, and today, as you all know, we need to make sure carbon negative is done right now. So every single thing, every single day that we delay is going to affect all of us. So in 15 years, if the carbon level emissions are staying as is, we all are going to die in about 15 years and 20 years. So we need to make that change as fast as possible. As a company, we've taken every single initiative to make this country at least to become carbon negative as fast as possible. So for that, we thought, like, nobody's going to buy new cars, so why don't we retrofit them? So this is a type of Mini that has been retrofitted to become electric. So that's then see, the passion driven us to, a lot of people say, why don't you retrofit the existing buses and existing other things? Because we use the same components and similar components that we use in Vega in order to do the retrofit itself. Then we realized that the very modern, we call the lower end, the highest consumed market is actually the tuk-tuk market. So the tuk-tuks are creating huge amount of emission, because it's not only giving you the carbon dioxide, but you also make some toxic gas because of the oil that they mix with the petrol. So we want to make sure we revolutionize and we reinvent the tuk-tuk. So this is what we did, and then. So that is actually a brief of that particular tuk-tuk that's coming into the market mid next year. So it does actually have better things like, it has a kind of a subframe, and then also it has a crumple zone that if you hit, then you don't have that much of impact. If you topple that, even we have a frame that goes around it, so it will much secure and safe. It has a boot space at the back, which gives you ample space to carry 2 suitcases or so. And then we use different models. So, and then it also has some doors in here. So it will be an air-conditioned version as well. So that we think that the majority of the tuk-tuk will be replaced by this electric tuk-tuk. And then I myself was driving it. And the good thing about it is like, it's like pretty much, you don't need to change the gears, and drivability is extremely well designed. So that we hope that this to go to the market, and most of the people will adapt into electric arena. So that way that we can actually change the biggest problem that we have, having so many million tuk-tuks to convert into electric. And also as a business model or economic model, as you seen in the numbers, in 2027, it will be kind of a $32 billion business. So our ambition is to get about 10 or 15% of the electric tuk-tuk market. So that's another thing. And then we also thought that we want to go into this little agriculture kind of vehicles. Instead of making as a bigger tractor, we can make a small ATV. So we completed this particular small ATV, which is running on electric. The tuk-tuk itself is doing about 200 kilometers per charge, and ATV that's about 120 kilometers per charge. So you can actually carry you can actually carry about 700 kilogram payloads at the back. So that you can carry your fertilizer, you can carry the crops, and you can have one of these field equipments that has been fitted into this, and it can be truly a very small tractor replacement. Then in order to do all these things, we need to have a kind of a charging network. So we designed and developed the charging network last 5-6 years, and we became the market leader today in Sri Lanka, and now we started developing in India and also in many African countries as well. So we saw this electric market, and we saw this thing about 8 years ago, and this is where that we spend our money to thinking that this is where this future should go, and every single thing has to be sustainable. So we address the problem about the sustainable transportation. So in order to address this one, we have our own charging network, is our own chargers. Every single thing which I'm showing you is designed, developed, manufactured in Sri Lanka. So these are not, we got from somewhere else and branded and selling it. So through that, our charging network charges any type of cars, EV cars today in the world. So, and then our true sustainability we want to create is that we want to make sure that we use solar or wind energy, any other renewable energy, and we use our own inverter, and then that particular inverter and also our own power modules, so that we store all that solar or wind energy into our own power modules. So these are our own inverters that will handle about multiple the renewable energy sources. And it's also uses our own home battery packs from 5 kilowatt to 10 kilowatt or stack of batteries for offices and any other industrial usage. So that we will have the solar to the inverter to power modules, and also for the chargers. So our whole idea is to make the whole house, the entire house, renewable. So you charge during the daytime and utilize in the nighttime like Tesla does. But it will have the plug-in charger. So you can charge your tuk-tuk, or you can charge your car using that. So it will be a truly sustainable transportation, sustainable home energy solution. These are like a bigger multi-step ones. And I don't want to go through any of these technical details. So from transportation to energy, we decided that we want to go for agriculture. So that way, that for the last 7 years or so, we've been investing heavily on the agriculture arena, and we call the hydroponics and aeroponics, and then we make the precision agriculture. So these are a lot of sensors to agriculture, the fertigators, and all these things designed and developed by ourselves, and we utilize AI, artificial intelligence, to make sure that the given plants are having the right condition and the most optimum condition by itself by deciding using the AI solutions. So all these sustainable solutions, so now from agriculture to transportation for the energy, and then we also moved into education platforms. So we decided that we want to change from the entire education from the content-based learning, SLIIT, so we thought that we want, whenever we get the students out, we need to make sure they have some kind of a skill. We need to have, they have the innovation. And we need to make sure we have education system based on problem-based. So in that way, when you resolve the problem, they had the ability of developing a skill, developing a problem solving, and also innovation. So most of the current education system for the last 24 years, for the 24 years of learning, you don't develop a skill, you don't develop a expertise, and you don't develop a problem solving skill. So it was one of these problems. So we wanted to address, from the traditional education and using only the platform. That was one of the things that we've been working. And then we heavily invested on AI and on all that. So I think my time is running out. There are so many things that we have actually developed on efficiency solar cells. So onto that particular renewable energy. So we can have all these webinars and talks and all that. And then finally, I briefly show you this one. This is actually the drone platform we've been developing for the last 5 years or so. It's an autonomous drone platform. So I personally don't believe that in about 5 years or 10 years, the vehicles, that on-road vehicles will be there available, because it's absolutely a waste of time, because we need to be in the roads and expand the roads and all that. Why do we want to do that? You just jump into the drone, and drone will take you A to B, and you will have well-defined path on the air. So you can have multi-stack of that. So that way, your transportation is much easier and much simpler. So it's actually flying. It's like a low-flying machine. So that that today with drones you can have much more, the reliability and security. So I think the future is about the drone transportation. So we actually invested heavily into that as well. So all in all, so these are, we develop our own battery cells and battery packs. So rather than designing our own lithium-ion batteries. So all these parts we design, and also finally we went into nutraceuticals. So basically in Sri Lanka is very famous for herbal medicine. So it's a surprise that why don't you use those herbal medicine and go into the market? And then we are trying to find solution outside when we do have the solutions inside. So only thing is like, because my so-called science is actually screwing that one up. And so-called science says that science did this one, and in theoretically science is extremely primitive. You know, so whatever the traditional technologies that we have is far superior than the science. So our whole job is to combine that, the superior knowledge with the so-called science, and prove them into that. So, so these are the things I just wanted to show you, because I know that I'm overrun by 3 minutes. And then finally, what I want to tell you is like innovation is the key for anything. So if you look at the future, it's all about innovation. So what do you think that something happened in 3 years? What do you think is about 5 years? And you take that particular step of innovation if you want to change those industries. And sustainability is extremely important, because we will not live in 15 years if you do not take these steps right now. So that's extremely important. Our lives are depending on the environmental sustainability. Rather than the economic sustainability, environmental sustainability is the key goal. And nobody knows, and the economic sustainability, how it's going to pan out, because tomorrow we don't know whether the COVID is over. We don't know what virus will come. We don't even know what tomorrow will be, what natural disasters will be. So even today with our power solution and all that, we can still sustain in home, and we can have some energy, we can have some transportation. So that is what we've been looking at, so that all these things happen because we've been thinking something to be innovative, and we look at these areas of the industries, and we innovated on those areas, and we started to have fruits right now. So finally, as all the students who are listening, if you are going to be innovative, only way that you can innovate is like if you're passionate about something. So the passion is the key in every single thing in your life. So if you do not have passion, you would not take any of these risks at all, because these are risky business. You know, somewhere down the line, I all want to do is to tell you that develop some kind of passion in life, and passion in every single thing you do. And that way that you will succeed, and you will also save the whole the world as well, because it's your duty to save this particular world in sustainable environment. So thank you so much for your own time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harsh Subhasinghe, for that very interesting and inspiring speech presentation, to say the least. And thank you for your presence here today once again. So with that, since the time is limited, we will move on to the next presentation. And I would like to invite Mr. Suren Fernando, the Chief Executive Officer of MAS Holdings Private Limited. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Shalini, and good morning, Professor Sharif, and good evening to all of you. Firstly, I would like to thank the Sri Lankan Institute of Information Technology for inviting me to speak to you all today. And I hope that as you join us from around the world, you and your families are keeping safe and staying well. So let me get straight to the topic of conversation. Constant innovation has become a key driver of sustainable economic development. When you look at leading organizations and economies across the world, they keep investing in many forms of innovation, whether it's product, whether it's technology or service, in order to create greater value and competitive advantage in the marketplace. And this evening, I'd like to share with you a few examples from our industry, the apparel and textiles industry. In the apparel and textile industry, technology broadly consists of three parts: digitization or digital systems, process automation, and mechanical automation, things like fixtures and jigs and so on. And I believe some of you may be familiar with all three of these parts, especially with all the recent hype and excitement around Industry 4.0 and digitization. For us at MAS, we have been investing in process and mechanical automation for a while now, but more recently have started to also focus on digital systems as a part of our digital transformation initiative. And interestingly, according to a study carried out by McKinsey & Co., 97% of the organizations aspire to transform digitally. However, only about 13% of these companies put the required resources and commit to, sincerely commit to an investment in digital transformation. And therefore, surprisingly, only about 2% of the companies are able to actually successfully transform. The opportunities that can be unlocked as we become more digital and the risks associated with not making that transition or transforming successfully into a digitally mature organization are equally high. The statistics that I shared with you prove that even globally, there is still so much work to be done for organizations and industries to become true digital natives. For us, today's topic, technological innovation-driven industrialization for sustainable economic development, from my perspective, is about staying relevant. And that means being able to continuously create or increase value to our customers and gaining a competitive advantage, not just in today's environment, but also in the environments of the future. To do so successfully, we need to understand what's going to change, from how things happen today to how things are likely to happen in the future. So we identify trends, potential headwinds, and also opportunities or tailwinds that would impact us as an industry, and then strategize on how we should use technology or technological innovation to help us emerge from them stronger and even more relevant than we have been in the past. While tech tools are important as an organization and as individuals, it is equally important to develop an innovative mindset that is constantly aware of the changes taking place around us and looking for ways through which we can do things better, whether it's better, faster, cheaper, or smarter. It is also important that you train and build capability within your team so that they can understand and use technology in a manner that helps them and the organization to thrive amidst change and uncertainty. I'd like to speak to you about how technological innovation can drive sustainable economic development using some examples from my experience, both old and new, from within the apparel industry. The world today has changed from the brands. We are a B2B organization, and if you look at the apparel and textile industry in Sri Lanka, basically most of the companies are servicing global iconic brands. And the world has changed from these brands pushing trends to consumers to now social media influencing trends that are picked up by brands. The traditional way of buying and selling has also evolved during, it was anyway a journey that the world was in, but it got really accelerated during the pandemic. Consumer buying decisions have become extremely dynamic. And so we need to build capability, capability to design, develop, and manufacture product at a much faster pace, rapidly, sometimes even mid-season, to cater to these new asks. We use technology to build tools to shorten the design and development lead times, using trend research tools, and also really spending time in understanding customer feedback, and also using tools to basically simulate and draw certain patterns and trends. We also use technology for virtual prototyping, where instead of producing a physical sample and putting it on physical bodies, we adapted digital tools that could virtually design and do virtual product shows for our customers. And this became so important in an environment where travel was almost a no-go or even severely limited. The whole process from concept to design to really able to crash our lead times using this technology as an unlock. We have deployed technology from design to research to product development that drives overall speed of product creation in our whole manufacturing process. From understanding consumer sentiments better and faster, or virtually sampling or showcasing our products, we see that when technology is integrated seamlessly in our value chain or in the process from end to end, this can be almost 50 to 60% faster to market than we were able to do traditionally using our traditional methods. Now, an example from the past. I recall almost 2 decades ago, we took a significant step in our company to bring in auto cutting machines into the organization. As you know, a critical and an important process in our manufacturing process is converting fabric and actually cutting fabric into those patterns. And auto cutters were almost unheard of in Sri Lanka at that time. And most companies, even today, still continue to use manual cutters. And bringing in this new technology 20 years ago into the organization was not easy. We had to initially drive the organization through a change management process to adapt to new technology and also proving to the employees and shareholders that this was a good change. Some of the questions that were asked, why are you bringing in this expensive new technology to the organization? We still have good manual skill available in the business. What are the benefits that are going to be derived through this? Are we investing too early? Would the paybacks be justified? These are some of the questions that came up in our business. Is there security of jobs a critically important factor? Bringing 20 years forward, looking at our factories now, we hardly have any manual cutters functioning. And we have today been able to justify and prove the benefits of being ahead of that industry curve. We have improved our cutting accuracies. We save a lot of fabric and therefore, which is also environmentally sustainable, and also been able to drive efficiencies and savings higher than ever before. So certainly a decision that we made 20 years ago is proving dividends. It started to pay out dividends a lot earlier, but today certainly we are clear that that's the way forward. And over the years, we've had to build the capability of being able to produce smaller order volumes. Few years ago, our order sizes were much longer, basic similar styles and longer production runs. But the world has changed now. Today, the demand is for read and react business models, where customer or the brands that we work would want to try out with a few test orders or a pilot run, and if it's successful, then to scale up faster. But the challenge today is to be able to produce those smaller order volumes at similar cost levels to the larger volumes that we produce traditionally. The technology unlock we needed here was workflow scheduling, where we could work in real time, change and adjust our plans in real time to meet and respond to customer needs. Manually, there are so many processes that you have to have in place in order to produce the goods. And with the changes required, increasing the effort to coordination is also high. So therefore, that drives cost. So the unlock here was actually to use workflow digitization to synchronize all of this in real time to be more productive, even with frequent changes. The machinery requirement also becomes increasingly diverse with small order volumes, and therefore the utilization of the machines would tend to reduce. And here again, that would require additional investment. So we looked at technology and used technology solutions of creating virtual inventories of machines that are available for us across the globe, across all our organizations, across all our factories. So when one plant doesn't need a machine, we are able to look at a screen and identify where that machine is available or where we can transfer that machine for it to be used or a purpose by another plant, despite where the plants are located. And through this, we have been able to better utilize both our machines and the skill that we have in our factories. Introduction of automation has also increased the productivity in our manufacturing units. Majority of the value creation in our production lines will in the future come from semi-automated or smart sewing machines compared to the current situation we are in, where the majority of value creation or addition is dependent on a team member skill. Automation will also be able to provide a platform to improve quality and craftsmanship, critical to win business today. Smart sewing machines and digitally connected shop floor operations in the future will formulate the base of a digital factory. Single operation-based team members will also elevate to be able to be multi-skilled to actually manage a complete workstation. And having dynamic real-time data visibility in our plants will also help us and provide many opportunities for continuous improvement and to really be more productive and to gain capacity through efficiencies, improve the quality of the processes, reduce the cost of manufacture, and be competitive in a global environment. More than 50% of the cost of making a garment or manufacturing a garment is in the raw material, or what we call the input cost. With the gradual industrial transformation from traditional factories to smart factories of the future, our suppliers also must get on board with this journey. We have already started working with our tier 1 suppliers to have seamless data connectivity. And we have common KPIs that are aligned to the value stream and to use technology to provide visibility and to respond to very volatile and unpredictable demand. We also plan to use this technology with our partner suppliers jointly to improve the quality of our raw materials, to reduce the variation that we see, and in turn, reduce the noise levels in the factory for smooth operations and to create a digitally connected value stream. When we speak about mechanical automation, the most asked question in our business is, are robots going to replace people? The answer is yes and a no. It might replace to some extent. Wherever people are doing repeatable, mundane, monotonous work, it is extremely cost effective for us to look at computers or robots to take over that work so that people can be upskilled to take on more value adding and maybe work that is more personally gratifying. Further, in the context of the apparel industry, some of the team member work involves sensory motor skills, which are difficult and extremely expensive to be replaced by a robot. So in a case like that, the human skill still becomes important. And that's why, as an organization, we went into automation, where we do things automatic, but with a human touch. I'm sure that you would have come across many similar examples in other industries that you're probably connected to. For any organization to survive and prosper in such an environment, innovation is imperative. However, innovation is no longer only for creating value or benefit to individuals, organizations, and societies. The ultimate purpose of innovation should be for a much greater purpose, far-reaching, helping to create a smarter future where employees find work meaningful and purposeful, and people can enjoy the best quality of life possible. We shouldn't look at digitizing or innovating for the sake of it, but more so to achieve a clear business objective, rolled out in phases so that it makes economic sense for a business and industry. There must be a well-articulated use case for all innovation. In developing the right mindset required and the capability within your teams to be able to navigate through the challenges that lie ahead in actually commercializing or executing. That's it from me. I really want to thank Professor Ratnayaka and Professor Ramanathan and Professor Samantha and his team at SLIIT for inviting me to be a part of this event and putting this program together. And I'm going to leave you with one last thought. In this constantly evolving world, if we get this journey towards innovation right, not only can we achieve sustainable economic development, but we can be creators of a future, a better future. Thank you and wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much, Mr. Surain, for those that very insightful speech and for sharing your thoughts on this topic. And of course, once again, for being present for this session. So with that, we would like to next up move on to the last presentation by our guest of honor, Professor Mohan Munasinghe. So if I'm to introduce him, he's the chairman of the Monashing Institute for Development, and he's the former vice chair of the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize winning UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's now hear what Professor Mohan has to express.
Ayubowan, Vanakkam, greetings. Congratulations to the organizers for hosting this timely online webinar, which will produce important results. Thanks to SLIIT Business School for inviting me, especially Dean Telit Jangode. I'm sorry I cannot join you in person due to COVID-19. We are striving to achieve sustainability in the 21st century, including economic prosperity, social progress, and environmental protection. I will explain how the Sustainomics framework and balanced inclusive green growth, BIGG, shows us the way forward. We are all interconnected on one planet. Digital technology can help us unite to save the earth and ourselves. Let us act now, together. Let us look at sustainable development and the role of digital technology. What issues block sustainable development in the world? There's poverty, inequality, resource shortages, energy, water, food, financial sector collapse, pandemics like COVID, conflicts, weak leadership, and climate change, which is the ultimate threat multiplier, worsening all the other issues. Multiple threats are interrelated and synergistic, but we, the stakeholders, 7 billion people on the planet, have divergent interests. Our responses are uncoordinated. We need to take more decisive action, particularly at the middle level of city mayors, company CEOs, community leaders, and so on, to develop robust, integrated strategies. Let's look at the nexus of resource limits, inequality, and poverty. There is a concept called ecological footprint of humanity, which is the sum total of resources that are required to support human life. In 2012, we needed 1.5 Earths to support us. By 2030, if we continue as we are, we'll need almost 2 Earths, really unsustainable. Who is doing all this consumption? There is an unfair consumption pattern. From a champagne glass, 85% of the consumption is done by the richest 20 percentile of the world's population. They are consuming 60 to 70 times more than the poorest 20 percentile. Meanwhile, there are 800 million people who are starving. Just imagine the 1% of the richest people in the world own more wealth than the remaining 99%. 1% of the richest emit 175 times more greenhouse gases than the poorest 10%. And 2,200 billionaires gained $11.4 trillion in 2020 during COVID-19, while billions went hungry. And global arms expenditures were almost 2 trillion, also in 2020. If we put these two facts together, we see why when the rich already use more than one planet worth, where are the resources to help the poor? So we have 75 years of unmet goals and broken promises since 1947, when all countries signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the UN. And since then, we have had many treaties, and now in 2015, we have the Sustainable Development Goals. All 17 of those SDGs are contained in this 1947 document. So we haven't moved forward very far. What are the key concepts to move forward towards a 21st century Earth eco-civilization? In 1992, at the Rio Earth Summit, I proposed the Sustainomics framework and balanced inclusive green growth path. This will facilitate implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The first core concept of Sustainomics is called climb the mountain, because sustainable development is like a mountain peak which is covered with clouds. It is mysterious, but we need to walk uphill one step at a time, and eventually we'll reach the peak. So we have to empower people to take action, because unsustainable activities are easy to identify. When we leave this room, we can switch off the light. We can turn off a tap. We can plant a tree, and we can do these things at the personal, company, city, national levels. For example, companies, you have corporate social responsibility, sustainability accounting, triple bottom line, and so on. The second core concept is harmonizing the sustainability triangle for balance and integration. We need economic prosperity to help the poor, but we also need to protect the environment, the natural resources, minimize pollution. And on the social side, we need to empower people and include them. So any topic can be analyzed in terms of these 3 dimensions and their interactions, including digital technology. Digital technology is closely linked to the 3 assets that support sustainable development. There is built capital, like the buildings and the roads and so on. There is natural capital, the air, water, and land, and there's social capital. This is what is in civil society. It is supported by social media and digital technology. It's a personal networks. The values, ethics, and culture is the invisible glue that binds us together. The third core concept is to transcend boundaries of sustainable development in our own minds with innovation and fresh ideas. In particular, we have to replace unsustainable values, but we have to think in terms of multiple disciplines, in terms of spanning local to global scales, set from days to months to years to centuries, and where you have to work with many stakeholders. Also, let us see the critical role of values. Unethical social values, greed, selfishness, and corruption are currently driving an unsustainable development triangle. It has caused a model of economic maldevelopment where growth is based on debt, you have extreme market forces, poverty, inequality, and so on. And that has caused the environmental debt with unsustainable pollution, depleted natural resources. And the less resources you have, the more you fight over them. So there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq or in any of the countries that were invaded. It was all for oil, for water, and other resources. And the sustainable development space is constantly shrinking. We also need to transcend disciplines to address these issues. The sustainable development issues run all the way from social justice and equity all the way to biological and physical resources. And you have many topics: philosophy, sociology, economics. Here is technology and digital technology, and all the way to natural resources. Now, Sustainomics is the framework that combines all of these together. We have to transcend stakeholder boundaries. In particular, civil society and business must push governments, work together with governments, not against them. And digital technology can help to achieve good governance and sustainable development. And the fourth core concept is just implement, 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 no talking. There are many case studies and best practice examples of the application of the analytical tools and policy options of Sustainomics. Please contact me if you want to know more. So the present status, we have an unbalanced sustainable development triangle. Global systems are close to collapse. Here I have plotted the environmental risk in terms of per capita greenhouse gas emissions and the economic progress in terms of per capita income, GNP. If you're poor, you are low per capita income, but you have low emissions. If you're rich, you have high emissions, well above the safe limit for greenhouse gases, but you're also rich, and many middle income countries are in here. And of course, the triangle is unbalanced. The first step in the BIGG path is called green growth, to balance economy and environment. And what this says is that the rich countries must transform. They can continue the good life, but they can use much less natural resources. And we have the technologies and the methods to do that. There is no excuse. What about the middle group of countries? They will not need to follow the profligate path, the bad path of the rich. They can use this greenhouse gas tunnel, Sri Lanka hopefully, and digital technology will facilitate the green growth path. And it applies to all kinds of resources like water, food, and energy, not just climate. And balanced inclusive green growth is the final step. It harmonizes economy, environment, and society. How? You take the green growth path and make it pro-poor and inclusive. And then you have this complete harmony, which works for all kinds of resources, and digital technology, greatly accelerated by COVID-19, can help BIGG. How can DT guide us to global BIGG paths of the 21st century? We need a global vision of world equal civilization of the 21st century, focusing on happiness and well-being, not only material consumption or GNP. So I've worked on this gross national happiness concept in the Kingdom of Bhutan, and it's well advanced. So the last chance we have is the UN 2030 agenda and the 17 Sustainable Development because it is universal, integrated. Digital technology is included in SDG 9, innovation and infrastructure. And these SDGs have to be adapted to each country's needs. BIGG at the national level to integrate and do a full national study. In 2017, Sri Lanka President Sirisena appointed a presidential expert committee to fulfill his UN pledge. We produced a report called Sustainable Sri Lanka 2030 Vision. I chaired the report, and we had a complete BIGG path, comprehensive for Sri Lanka. And digital technology can certainly help this national level integration. And just a little bit of reminiscing, looking at the performance of digital technology. This is the famous Moore's law. The number of transistors per CPU has steadily increased logarithmically for these many years. And I have my personal experience. As a Cambridge University undergraduate in 1964, I was using slide rules, log tables. We had an old computer called EDSAC. We used autocode and punched tape. If you missed one hole in the tape, you had to repunch the whole tape. As MIT physics graduate student in 1970, I used punch cards, Fortran, IBM 36070 mainframe computer that I used to run myself. Professional in 1980, I used a Radio Shack mini computer and a hand calculator. And a professional in the 1990s and 2000s. We have a full range of digital technologies. Laptops, internet, smartphones, data analytics, AI, cloud, platforms, programs, and apps. So we have come a long way, and we can do it. Impacts of digital technology on sustainable development. There are many social gains, increased income and employment for the poor, increased empowerment through social media, great access to information, but there are also risks, exclusion of poor and inequality. Internet information can be used for destructive purposes like terrorism and so on. There are environmental gains. You have more efficient production and resource use and better pollution management. But uncontrolled consumerism with digital technology leads to more pollution and natural resource waste. And the hardware of digital technology is also polluting through e-waste. There are economic gains, increased productivity and growth, greater variety of goods and services, but there is a risk, widening gap between rich and poor, greater risk of instability, and so on. Now, digital technology will link sustainable consumers and producers to create sustainable markets and culture. Digital technology can support sustainable consumers and sustainable producers, a small group to form a loop of sustainable consumption. And eventually, if that behavior, good behavior spreads throughout society, you can have traditional markets for all, like Polars and others, online markets for youth. And I think MIND and SLIIT should be promoting to create a sustainable consumption society. But watch out for potential surprises, because you have climate change, which is the ultimate risk multiplier, pandemics like COVID, resource shortages, social unrest, conflicts, economic crises, technological disruption. Digital technology leaders and professionals have a key role. Innovation can build resilience to help us survive in a dynamically changing world. And here are 12 potentially economic disruptive technologies. Be careful, 8 of them, the top 8 are digital technologies. Mobile internet, artificial intelligence, all the way to autonomous vehicles and 3D printing. Just some personal advice. Before we harmonize the earth, we must harmonize ourselves. So you have your work, income, job satisfaction in the domain of the mind, but you also need health, fitness, environment, and longevity. And you also need family, friends, and community, social side, and that makes a well-balanced person with a personal sustainability triangle that will be happy, contented, and a sustainable lifestyle. So I have an optimistic final message for digital technology community and the world. We have multiple global problems that pose serious challenges. These problems can be solved together provided we begin now. Sustainomics and BIGG shows us the first steps to transform the business as usual scenario into a more secure future. Governance systems must be transformed to deal with multiple crises in an integrated way. We have to manage post-COVID explosive growth to support sustainability. Development, particularly business and civil society, can help government, and DT professionals can play an innovative role, especially those graduates of SLIIT, in devising a new 21st century path for sustainable development in Sri Lanka and the world. Here is the ancient Pali blessing. Let us not forget our ancestors. May the rains come in time, the environment. May the harvest be bountiful, economy. May the people be happy and contented. May the king be righteous. That is society. So our ancestors knew about the SD triangle. We are just rediscovering it now. The Monashing Institute for Development gives scholarships and training, applied research, engages in public policy. We have many publications. Please go to our website. Stuti, thank you. Nandri.
Well, let us thank Professor Mohan for that very informative presentation. And with that, now I would like to invite Professor K. Ramanathan, who's an adjunct professor at the School of Business at Western Sydney University in Australia, to do the honors and introduce the keynote speaker for the day.
Thank you, Ms. Shalini. Good evening, Professor Lakshman Ratnayaka, Chancellor of the Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology, our keynote speaker, Professor Nawaz Sharif, our distinguished guests of honor, Professor Mohan Monashing, Mr. Suren Fernando, and Dr. Harsha Subasinghe, Professor Samantha Telejjagoda, Dean, SLIIT Business School, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. For me, it's a great honor to have been given this opportunity to introduce our distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Nawaz Sharif. Another important reason for my delight is that my association with Professor Sharif goes way back into the late 1970s, when I was a postgraduate student at the Asian Institute of Technology and commenced my studies in industrial engineering and management under Professor Sharif. Professor Sharif was also my PhD supervisor, and our association has continued without a break now for 44 years. I thank most sincerely the Dean of the SLIIT Business School, Professor Samantha, for so graciously bestowing this honor upon me to introduce Professor Sharif. Professor Sharif has a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from the Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, a master's degree in Engineering Administration from the George Washington University in the United States. He completed his doctoral degree in Industrial Engineering from the Texas A&M University in the United States in 1970. In 1971, he was handpicked by Professor Donald Drew of the Asian Institute of Technology to support and strengthen a new postgraduate program at AIT in systems engineering. Starting at AIT as assistant professor in 1972, within a decade, Dr. Sharif was promoted to full professor. And in 1982, in recognition of his considerable academic achievements, administrative skills, and enviable international professional profile, was appointed as Vice President for Academic Affairs at AIT. He was then still in his 30s. In 1981, while acting as the head of the Regional Computer Center at AIT, Professor Sharif established in partnership with IBM a unique postgraduate program on computer applications in business, possibly one of the first in the Asia-Pacific region. In an earlier visionary move in 1975, Professor Sharif had launched a program in management of technology as a specialization in the Department of Industrial Engineering and Management of AIT. Nowhere else in the Asia-Pacific region had such a program been commenced at that time. And even in the United States, it was there only in one or two leading universities. Professor Sharif's pioneering research in the field of management of technology was recognized globally, and while still in his early 30s, Professor Sharif was invited to join the editorial board of the prestigious journal Technological Forecasting and Social Change. After more than 4 decades, he still remains on that editorial board as a highly valued and respected figure. In 1983, while on sabbatical from AIT, Professor Sharif was asked by the Undersecretary General and the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, popularly known as UNESCAP, to compile a thematic report titled Technology for Development to be presented to the governments of the Asia-Pacific region at the annual sessions of the Commission. The contents of this report captured the imagination of the member countries of the Asia-Pacific region. And Professor Sharif was subsequently invited to serve the United Nations as the director of the Asian and Pacific Center for Transfer of Technology, APCTT, which is a specialized agency of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. He served there during 1984 to 1989, before returning to AIT as chair professor at the School of Management. In 1997, he moved back to the United States and joined the University of Maryland as professor and doctoral program director for the period 2000 to 2007. Currently, Professor Sharif is a principal consultant in a knowledge-based enterprise and teaches in a number of universities in the United States and Asia as an adjunct professor. Since 1976, for more than 4 decades, he has carried out work as an international consultant for science and technology projects sponsored by the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, UNDP, UNIDO, UNESCO, and over the past 45 years has conducted numerous capacity building and policy advisory workshops and seminars in many Asian countries. Professor Sharif has regularly taught postgraduate level courses in the areas of operations research, decision science, technology management, and project management. He has supervised more than 70 master's theses and taught 20 doctoral dissertations during his tenure both at AIT and at the University of Maryland University College. He has authored and co-authored over 20 books and over 100 technical reports published in prestigious refereed international journals and conferences. I'm sure we all know that Professor Sharif has visited Sri Lanka several times to provide technology management consultancy services to government agencies and has delivered seminars on themes related to management of technology and innovation at the University of Moratuwa, the National Engineering Research and Development Center, and the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no doubt that you will enjoy this webinar immensely, knowing that you will be listening to not just a distinguished academic, but an experienced advisor and consultant to several governments and international agencies. I'm also sure that you will treasure the amazingly beautiful view graphs prepared by Professor Sharif, which have been made available to all of you. And these view graphs, as you would have realized by now, are filled with insight, knowledge, and wisdom. Thank you again, Professor Samantha and SLIIT, for graciously granting me this privilege of introducing my respected teacher and mentor, Professor Nawaz Sharif. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Professor Ramanathan, for that great introduction. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me warmly invite Professor Nawaz Sharif to share his presentation and conduct this plenary session. Professor, would we like to go for a quick break, but since we're running short of time, would you like to start the session now?
Can you hear me? I was supposed to give an introductory remark in this session, and then I'll go to the plenary. Can I?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So please allow me to put up my file. Can you see me? Can you see my slide now? I am having some problem. I'm having some problem with your pictures. I do not know what's happening there. This one I would like to put by the side, but it's coming in the middle. Anyway, if you can hear me, I would like to start.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, you can also see my slide.
We can see.
Hello, friends. Greetings. I'm Nawaz Sharif. It's indeed a privilege for me to be given this opportunity to speak in this webinar. I express my gratitude to the leadership of Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology for organizing this webinar. My sincere thanks to all of you for honoring me today by your online presence. Thank you. Now, before I start my opening remark, first of all, I would like to thank Ramanathan for his kind introduction. And then I would like also to thank the three distinguished speakers who spoke before me, Dr. Harsha Subasinghe, from the Cogen Group, Mr. Suren Fernandez, who talked about the apparel industry, and Professor Monashing, who talked about sustainable development. I'm very grateful to the first two speakers for giving so many practical innovation-related examples. They talked about industrial technology innovation as the challenge for us, and we have to take it very seriously and urgently. And I'm also grateful to Professor Monashing for bringing us to the world of reality that we have to think about sustainable development. So I think there could not have been any better introduction to what I'm going to talk about other than taking these three speeches together. So I'm grateful. Thank you for giving the kind introduction to my presentation. What I will do is I'll just give you an appetizer for what I plan to present in the plenary session. As the appetizer, my opening remark contains three parts. First, an old breaking news. Then from there, I'm going to draw one lesson. And from that lesson, I'm going to talk about the National Industrial Globalization Initiative, the scheme that I'm going to present during the plenary. The chat is very well known. As you can see, it is a breaking news. Maybe some of you have heard of this before. This is a chat between two world famous innovators of two world famous innovative companies, Steve Jobs of Apple and Bill Gates of Microsoft. This is how the chat went. Steve Jobs asking, remember when we were poor? Bill Gates says, no. Then Bill Gates says, how about you? Steve Jobs says, me neither. Suddenly Bill Gates says, I went to a bank yesterday to talk about a loan. Oh, surprised. What do you need a loan for? That's the question from Steve Jobs to Bill Gates. And look at the answer that Bill Gates gave. I don't, the bank does. Please let that thing sink in everybody's head. He doesn't need any loan from the bank does. He provides loan to the bank. Now, I would like to give you some facts regarding these two companies. Current market cap of the two global high-tech corporations, Apple and Microsoft. Apple, $2.46 trillion US. Microsoft, $2.22 trillion US. If we humbly compare that with the World Bank data of 2020 for Sri Lanka gross domestic product, $80.71 billion US. Think about it. The country's GDP is in billion US dollar, and those companies, each one of them, the market cap is in trillion US dollar, 1,000 times. Let me make a few more remarks. Both companies converting emerging digital technology centric innovative ideas into wealth through successful business ventures locally as well as globally. Both companies leverage their internal capacities for technological innovation as their competitive edge in the global marketplace. Both companies created enormous amount of wealth for its owners and its home country. Wealthy owners, this is the catch. Wealthy owners don't borrow money from the bank. Banks take loan from them. That's what we got from the chat. Now, I would like to translate the lesson that I have learned from this chat and the facts that I have given so far. Technological innovation enables turning new ideas into cash through business, and competitive advantage-based global business can generate national wealth. Yes, wealth can give prosperity. So, a straightforward translation of that into my NIGI, National Industries Globalization Initiative. Goods and services enterprises of our countries should be leveraging technological innovation for successful global business, which will lead to national wealth creation. The plan that I'm going to use for my presentation today is given below. Industrial technology innovation for prosperity. We focus on technology innovation management to acquire enterprise competitive advantage, to make national enterprises, be global players, building an innovation economy so as to achieve sustainable economic development. This I'm going to present in the plenary session in 6 parts, and I'll explain those parts because we are already 12 minutes beyond our introduction time, so I'll not go into this, as I'm going to talk about that in the plenary session. Thank you for listening. See you in the plenary. This is the document that was circulated to all of you and which I'm going to use for my presentation. This document has got 6 parts. Part 1, see whether I can put my pointer. Yes, there are 6 parts. Part 1 is on technology, innovation-led new world order. Then part 2 on industries globalization for wealth creation. And part 3, elements of technology innovation system. These are the 3 parts that I'm going to talk about in the first half. Then I will take 5 minutes break and get into the second half. Part 1, technology innovation-led new world order. The theme for this part is brief portrayal of how industrial technology innovations are shaping the new world order. Now, this is the first view graph, and I'm going to spend a little time to talk about these first 2 sentences twice so that we have everything very clear regarding what we are going to do during this next hour. Technologies are human-made helpmates, created means that enhance physical and mental power of people. So by this sentence, I'm bringing to your attention that for myself and for all of us who are attending this webinar, technology is a human-made helpmate, and it helps us. It's a means, created means, that helps us enhance our physical and mental power. The second point I want to make is technological innovations facilitates what? Our collective endeavors to become more convenient and productive. These 2 points, please keep in mind, because they determine the fundamental basis upon which everything that I'm going to talk about today is dependent. It's dependent on technology as a means which enhances our physical and mental power. And also we are going to talk about technological innovation that facilitates our collective endeavors in the organizations where we work, either goods production or services provision. They facilitate our collective endeavors to become more convenient and productive. So with that as underlying theme for everything, now let me start with some of the technology innovation world order points that I want to make. The first one here is making and relentlessly improving technologies, meaning innovation, represent unique hallmark of human characteristics. As people are creative and people like to compete, technological innovation is in perpetual motion. The confluence of persistent human wants pool and human needs push render technological innovations to be unstoppable. So I have this bullet here that technologically is unstoppable innovation. Next, I want to talk about accelerated innovations. In earlier days, technological innovations in the old days appeared at slower pace as incremental or evolutionary type that followed social change. Technological innovations in the present days are appearing in much faster pace, breakthrough or revolutionary type that are now leading social change. Then I talk about globalization. Globalization is in human DNA. Accelerated technological innovations are now the impetus to intensification of globalization. Primary geopolitical forces for the rise in globalization are growing international trade, increasing foreign investments and capital flows, greater access to knowledge and materials, and higher mobility of people. As human nature is to show what they make and also get what others make, global trade volume is on the rise. However, everything is not so rosy. Technological advancements enable people to satisfy human needs better than before. Technological advancements also enable people to achieve freedom from hunger and misery. Moreover, technological advancements enable people to get higher returns on investment from myriad economic activities of their enterprises. The collective endeavors, goods producing or services providing enterprises. However, often due to irresponsible decisions for acquiring wealth very quickly by misuse or overuse of some technological innovations, we have made sustainability of ecosystem a critical concern. So this is the last point I have here in the New World Order. Ecosystem preservation has become a concern. Next. This slide is very interesting. Here I'm talking about mesmerizing nature of technology innovation trend. Let's compare the two products that we are very familiar with. This one on the left-hand side is the standard telephone that we used to have until very recently. And on the right-hand side is the cell phone that we all have now. Technological innovations enable earlier day standard telephones to become modern smartphones. And images of stunning manifestation of smartphones are given below here. These are the representation of what the smartphone is all about nowadays. It's a television, it's a record player, it's a camera, it's a timer, it's a navigator, music player, book reader. It's even a computer where we can send email, go to Google's, and go to YouTube and do much, much more. So I say here, incredible technological innovations. And I make three remarks. This is unprecedented, mesmerizing, mind-boggling, okay? And then also I say unpredictable. Now let me explain the part unpredictable, because if I ask myself and all of us here who are listening today, that say about 5-10 years ago, when we had this box telephone, as in the left-hand side, could you imagine that very soon we are going to have a telephone, which is the cell phone of present days? Perhaps not. And then if I ask, can you imagine what this cell phone is going to be in 5-10 years from now? Probably not. So I say the future is unpredictable. Industrial technology innovation management is the scope of our discourse. Another example of what is happening with technological innovation. Technological innovations alter capital ratio of products. Here, same old product, let me take a look. From telephone, box telephone to the cell phone. And here I'm looking at electric light bulbs from incandescent to fluorescent to LED bulbs. And the car that we are very familiar with, from mechanical to nowadays in electrical, almost self-driving car. Please try to compare the relative capital proportion changing trend in products of different era. In earlier days, the products of earlier days had nature-based material content much more than intellect-based technology content. But nowadays, the newer products have got intellect-based technology content much more than nature-based capital content. So I make a statement, modern technology products have greater technology over material capital. Now, having talked about a product, amazing product, a product, now let us talk about the industries. We are familiar with Industrial Revolution, Industry 1.0, then Industry 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. But Industry 1.0 was an era from 1760 to 1840, when mechanized small batch production with water and steam-powered locomotive energy was used for light engineering, farming, and food sector dominant economy. Whereas Industry 2.0, from 1850 to 1945, mass production with electric motors and fossil fuel-powered internal combustion engine, structures, process and construction sector dominant economy. Now for these two periods, I'm making a statement here that we were dependent on material capital for moderate growth. On the other hand, as we move to Industry 3.0 and 4.0, we find that it's quite different. Industry 3.0 from 1950 to 2000, automated production with electronic computers and ICT systems with energy from immediate sources, types of industries, machine tools, utility and precision work sector dominant economy. And then Industry 4.0, remote production with smart connected devices using mobile intelligence as digital data networks, cyber-linked systems, and knowledge sector dominant economy. Here, as compared to the previous two revolutions, reliant on greater intellectual capital for higher growth. Now, why we need higher growth, I'll talk about it in a few minutes, but let's only note now that earlier days, we were more dependent on material capital for moderate growth, but now we can achieve higher growth because we are dependent more on intellectual capital. So greater intellectual capital intensive industry restructuring is the foundation for high growth economy. That's what we would like to achieve. Now, having talked about product and industry, let me talk about our work, professional work. We, all of us, nowadays work in a completely different way than we used to do earlier. This is here the world of work, the media that we use, the places where we work, and the content of our work. The places now, anytime, any place, anywhere, that's how we work. The media that we use for our work, from mainframe computer to brand handheld mobile computers, but we do all the computing in the cloud, and we use artificial mobile intelligence to communicate. The type of work that we do, or the content of work that we do, is a combination of human intelligence and artificial intelligence. That's what is shown here. And I said that is intellect intensive. So nowadays, we use intelligence technology, mobile intelligence technologies for worldwide web linked professionals using artificial intelligence and or human intelligence. To summarize the matter, I'm going to read to you this top sentence, which gives everything in a nutshell. Modern industrial enterprise professionals, all of us who work in goods producing or services providing enterprises, can be at any place, assemble a team of talented experts on the internet, put their intellectual property in a secure cyber cloud, develop product innovation process through cloud computing and data, utilize a robotized factory and 3D printers to make all kinds of very high, very complex products and make those, market those via the World Wide Web. And the two distinguished person who spoke in the inaugural session gave plenty of example of what they're doing and how their work fits with this professional work that I just explained. Now, I would like next to talk about the enterprise, how things are changing at the enterprise level. Technology innovation affects enterprise operation. In what way? Technology innovation is shaping the external enterprise playing field. And also technology innovation is influencing the internal ball game. External playing field and internal ball game are being conditioned by technology innovations. Let's talk about the external playing field first. What is happening in the external playing field? We have a dizzy pace of innovations. We talked about that, unstoppable innovation. We have a messy type of connection, globalization, when everything is connected to everything else. And when too many things are connected, it becomes very messy. And we talked about unpredictability, remember? So the future is very much fuzzy. One more factor I put in here, which we can discuss a little bit later, that mergers and alliances of companies nowadays have become very shaky because they do not last too long. So this is the external environment. Now the internally, so we have this innovation is paramount for acquiring better and newer products and services-based global competitive advantage. And also innovation is prerequisite to be lean, agile, mean, and green, and to be more productive. So these are the technological aspects that we talked about. Now let me move into the business considerations. Yet universal business challenges for international market competition are still, as always, creating values, delighting customers, adapting to market flux, and sustaining growth. And for all of these, technology management is paramount for industrial enterprises operating in the global marketplace. This view graph is very simple. Here, everything is known to you. The communication technologies we use nowadays, the cloud storage and computing technologies that we use nowadays, the collaboration technologies that we use nowadays, and the smart device technologies that we use nowadays for our professional work. I only want to make sure that we should all recognize the importance of another factor that I have put here in the middle, the transaction technologies. Without the improvements that has happened with these transaction technologies, we could not become global players. Nowadays, anyone, anywhere, any part of the world can buy and sell product to the world if we have this international debit credit banking system where people can buy anything from anywhere. This is a very important factor for us to remember. Next, I give a brief illustration of how the technology, new technologies are taking shape. Number one, here on the left-hand side, is that earlier we used to know that matter consists of three elements: solid, liquid, and gas. But nowadays we know that there's one more element. Solid, if you heat, it becomes liquid. You heat, it becomes gas. But if you superheat gas, it becomes plasma, ionized, and it gets it reverse form when you cool it down. Without this, we could not have achieved or have this iPhones or cell phone that we have nowadays, or the flat screen television and all these communication devices that we have now, is because we can use plasma in our new products. So here I'm trying to say a few more things. Nanotechnology, combination of mechatronics, physics, photonics, electronics, biotechnology, engineering, biology, and chemistry. But the most important thing is happening now here, the convergence of information technology, synthetic biology, and nanotechnology. This is giving us all kinds of new products. And here at the bottom, I've given some examples of what are these new products. Creative industries, knowledge industries, 3D printer, robotics, artificial intelligence, digital industry, electronics of things, Internet of all things, advanced algorithms, software, things like that. The last slide for my part one is taking us to the sustainability concern. Here, technologies are human-made helpmates. The practical means that enhance both physical and mental power of the people. Yet it is important to remember that while technological innovations give enormous impetus for our well-being, it could also lead to the total destruction of our human world. However, this is an important point we should remember. By itself, any technology is neither good nor evil. It is just a means for people to utilize it wisely for benefit while avoiding all the negative consequences. So it is our moral responsibility to ensure that sustainability of human ecosystem be treated as a mandatory consideration in enterprises and national technology deployment actions for evading the darker impacts. Sustainable development, you are all very familiar with. This is social progress, economic growth, and environmental soundness together. But we see deforestation, resource depletion, degradation, global warming, climate change, all of these are our concern. So I'm presenting to you in a nutshell is that it is important for us to achieve win-win endgame, win-win, win for people and win for planet. That was the end of my part one. Now I move to part two. This is industries globalization for wealth creation. Here I get into the development area. We are interested to bridge the gap. The developed economies are rich, have prosperity. Developing economies, we are poor and we have poverty, and we would like to bridge the gap. But please note, the burning issue is arresting and rapidly reducing the apparently ever widening of income inequality in our current, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer world. Let's pause a second to note that the gap is widening everywhere. It's not the gap between the developed and developing country, within every country. Even in our developing country, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. So that is the burning issue. Industrial technology innovation is nowadays accepted as the last hope for bridging our prosperity gap. Also, it is recognized that in the fiercely competitive and globalized socioeconomic setting, industrial technology innovation management can help us achieve sustainable development. Now, with that premise, I would indicate how we can derive our winning strategy. The premise is technological innovation can be leveraged. We can leverage innovation for competitive advantage. And through that, we climb to winning the future. How? March for innovation, high-tech innovation for 4.0 era products. And then introducing new and value-added products to the global marketplace, and all of these gives us prosperity. So I have this statement here. Evidently, technological innovations provide competitive edge to industrial enterprises for wealth generation by the new era products and higher value-added existing products. And I gave you the example of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, the Apple and Microsoft company, to show how companies, individuals, and the countries became so rich, so prosperous because of industrial technology innovation. One more example here I want to show you to illustrate the ownership succession of a familiar wow product. I call it a wow product because it's amazing. And I'm interested to look into the evolution timeline of handheld cell phone, you can call it mobile phone or whatever you like, by new companies of new countries outperforming the established ones. So let's note, Motorola was the first cell phone producer from United States in 1985. They produced something which was known to be as brick phone. It looked like a brick. The Nokia came in about 2000 from Finland with a phone which is widely known as candy bar phone. Looks like a candy bar, but still a single function cell phone. And Japan, about the same time, NTT came up with camera and flip phone. Japanese people are the camera people, so they added a camera to the phone, and it is a flip. So you can take pictures, you can send pictures, and you can send messages using this. All of a sudden, in 2002, something called BlackBerry came into the world. And many of us who have owned this, we used to be proud to say, send a message that this message was sent from my BlackBerry. Why? Because BlackBerry was the first cell phone that could send emails. We could connect to the internet using this phone. However, this keyboard was very clumsy. So I understand that Steve Jobs told his engineers that I would like to have a BlackBerry without a keyboard. And this is what the Apple company engineers came up with, the iPhone, a touch phone system. There's no keyboard. And then Samsung made it even better, much bigger. Nowadays, Samsung has come up with a flip phone, which opens on two sides, and it's a double side cell phone. And we understand that Huawei from China is coming up with better telephones in the 5th generation group. Note the statement here I put here. Mind-boggling innovations have made the single-function cell phone a smart wow product. It is informative and interesting to developing countries to note that the ownership, that means company and the country, of the upgraded version of the product moved. One more example I want to give about this movement of the ownership of these global companies, corporations. Microsoft here on the left. Bill Gates used to be the CEO, but not anymore. Satya Nadella, an Indian American, he is the CEO of this company from 2014. Apple company here. The famous products of Apple company, iMac, iPod, iPhone, iPad, and iWatch. What is next? Unfortunately, because Steve Jobs is resting, I do not see any more new product from this company. Let's look at the semiconductor industry. It used to be Intel, most dominating company in the whole world, the American company. Until 2011, Intel was the world's biggest microchip producer. But then Samsung, between 2017 and 2020, became the world leader. But now, this company in Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, is the largest, biggest semiconductor or microchip producer in the world. And you know this because nowadays all the smart products that we have in our home, our refrigerators, our air conditioners, our door openers, everything has got a semiconductor, has got a microchip. Who produces this microchip? The Taiwanese company. And because of the shipping supply chain bottleneck all over the world, we are having production constraint. But the point that I wanted to make is that the ownership of these companies moved from people to people, and also from one country to another country, which is very important for us to note the realities and opportunities that I'm going to talk about here. Generally speaking, no successful innovator lives forever or lasts for too long. Also, evidently, no famous innovative company remains as world leader forever. Innovators are usually young, energetic, courageous, and open-minded people. High ambition to make a difference is a distinctive trait of successful innovators. That is the opportunity for any country to produce wow products for prosperity. Technological innovations can provide competitive edge to industrial enterprises for wealth generation in the global market. Current realities indicate opportunities for us. This is the hope. Why not us? And I saw some hope in the two examples that were given in our introductory session by companies in Sri Lanka, which I think will very soon become the global leaders in certain areas. Now let's move into the industry a little bit, go back to industry. We talked about that already, but now I would like to link that with the economic condition of the countries. The Industry 1.0, this is the type of things that we do, and this is related to low-income countries. Low-income countries use generally industry type 1.0 industries, enterprises producing apparel, food sector, and light engineering goods. Whereas middle-income countries, they are using industry 2.0 type of enterprises in the material, chemical, and structural construction industries. But as I have said before, these low-income countries and middle-income countries, they have this very interesting point that we have to remember: natural resource endowment-based comparative advantage. Because these industries are natural resource dependent, more natural resource content than technology content. So the comparative advantage for these industries comes from the natural resource endowments. But if we move to industry 3.0 and 4.0, for high-income industries and high-income countries and for prosperous countries, we find that these industries that are very common in high-income countries and prosperous countries, energy, utilities, machine tool, control industries, knowledge, creativity, software, analytics industries, these are creativity, technology, resource-based, competitive advantage given industries. Another very important point to remember, that we have to move beyond. Some of our countries were lucky, we got a lot of natural resources, so we take advantage of our comparative advantage using natural resource endowments. But even countries who do not have any natural resources, like Japan, South Korea, we see that they have become prosperous countries by using created technology resource-based competitive advantage. So here, high, low-income and mid-income countries' products are more material intensive, and high-income and prosperous countries' products are more technology intensive. And the general statement here, new world industries have greater technology or material content. Next chart is very simple. I'm not going to read everything here. You can take a look later on. I'm showing the gross national income per capita of some countries and the number of global enterprises they have listed in the Fortune 500 category. Australia, look, USA, and then China, India, Pakistan. What you will notice that though the gross national income per capita is very high in some of these countries, but the most developed countries, highly advanced, they have more this global enterprises. USA 121. And now you see China 119. And what kind of industries they have? And here I've given you some examples. This is mostly Industry 4.0 type of enterprises. So I make this remark, since global high-tech corporations can help acquire wealth, industrialization path should promote selective, high-potential local enterprises to become global tech corporations for national prosperity. For information, you may note that I have put here Finland to show that all countries are not very big countries, even small countries like Finland, because they have technological advantage. They create a lot of new technologies. They are able to become global corporations. To become global corporations, they've got one more advantage. This is the new Data Analytic Plus. For market success, large corporations nowadays get business intelligence from digital big data analytics. And what are they doing? They get this business intelligence enables them to reduce producers' cost, add customer value, make agile decision, and know exactly when to launch new products. So with that, I am to the next chart, which is synthesizing the rationale for industry globalization. The most important point I want to make here is that even though we talk about gap reduction, but please note that in my view, we should not be talking about financial gap reduction because there are many rich countries which are not developed. So the gap that we're interested in to reduce is the industrial technology innovation capacity gap. So my statement here, global industrialization research shows that the real gap between developed and developing countries is in fact the industrial technology innovation capacity gap. Thus, planners widely agree that technological innovation capacity building should be the cornerstone for achieving prosperity. So we're going to talk a lot about how to improve our innovation capacity. There are certain other things that I have said here which you can read. Only thing I want to go to highlight is that the end goal that we all have is our enterprises should join the global value chain, and some of our enterprises should become global corporation if we want to become developed economies. So in summary, this is the algorithm that is presented in my model and which is more or less what the South Korean model is all about. This is what they used. They focused on technological innovation management in very selected areas to achieve enterprise competitive advantage in those selected areas so that their national enterprises became global players. Nowadays, South Korea has got a large number of global players, and the South Korean economy is also an innovation economy, and I think they're achieving their goal of sustainable development very well. So this is our NEGI, join global value chain, become global corporation. With that, I complete part 2. Now I move into part 3. Here I'm going to talk about the elements of technology innovation system. First, I would like to suggest that we have to understand that we're talking about technology and we're talking about technology innovation. So we must be very clear about what we mean by the word technology. And here I'm showing that if we take the dictionary definition, or if we take the university textbook university definition, we are not in a position to use it in a way that we want. Also, the common perception of technology is also a difficulty becomes a problematic for us. And let me give you 1 or 2 examples here to illustrate. If you talk to physical scientists, technologies are the laboratory equipment and apparatus used for scientific experiments. Talk a business manager, technology is an asset used for production of consumer goods and provision of customer services. You talk to an economist, technology is a capital good utilized as a production factor for economic endeavors. Information technologist, technology is the computer system, hardware, and software used for data processing. So I make the statement, you can read the rest yourself, that though all of the above definitions are correct, I'm not saying that they're wrong. They're correct, but they're problematic for the managerial actions that we are interested in. What is the managerial action we are interested in? We are interested as a technology manager to use technology to improve our production facility or to improve our services output. So again, emphasizing one more time, technologies are human-made helpmates, the means that enable production actions. However, to manage technology well, we have to delineate technology system components as levers in the enterprise manager's toolbox that can be deployed desired outcome of the production work. So as a technology manager, like when we are driving a car, I have a steering wheel, I have a brake, I have many other things which enables me to maneuver the car from one place to the desired place. Same way as a technology manager, I need in my toolbox some levers that I can pull and push, which will enable me to get a better output from my enterprise. So this is a simple system which we have devised, Ramanathan, myself, and many others, around 85, 86 period, and seems to be widely accepted and working all right now. There are 5 dynamically interrelated components. Technoware is the first one, object embodied physical facility, in other words, tools and artifacts. Humanware, person embodied human abilities, skills and talents. Infoware, record embodied facts and figures, specs and recipes. Orgaware, teamwork embodied operational procedures, flows and routines. SysNetware, cyberspace embodied digital networks. So THIOC, these are the components. And THIOC are utilized by every enterprise, but they're utilized a little bit differently. Uniquely intertwined THIOC systems form the transformation mechanism in goods producing industries and a platform in the services providing industries. So for the goods producing industry, THIOC is the mechanism to convert inputs to desirable outputs. For the services organization, the THIOC system that is used provides a platform to provide customer service. Having said that, I'm going to give some properties very briefly about this THIOC. Number one is they all have various degrees of sophistication. And in order to save time, I'm going to use the Technoware, which is very easy to explain as a way to explain the degrees of sophistication. Remember, Technoware is tools. And Technoware sophistication means better tools and better artifacts for our production work or for our service work. What are the tools, degrees of sophistication? Manual, lowest level, medium, power tool, high, automated tool, programmable, top level, and then zero deviation, ideal, means self-correcting tools. So depending on the enterprise, depending on the type of work, you have to use different types, different levels of sophistication. For example, if you want to produce microchips that we talked about by the semiconductor industry in Taiwan, they have to use tools very precise, which are self-correcting, and they can produce output of very little deviation. Similarly, we can talk about humanware, infoware, ergoware, systemware, but since I do not have that much time, you can take a look. But please remember that when we plot the THIOC component that we are utilizing in our enterprises, we should make it a weighted, we should use a weighted score rather than a simple score. The weighted score because there is some dominance effect that we have to remember, and I will explain the dominance effect next. But before I go into the dominance effect, let me also explain to you two things that is important for us to remember. The technological change. How does technological change happens? For Technoware, changes through diffusion, substitution and diffusion. Humanware changes through process of learning and improvement. Infoware changes through the process of acquiring and refining. Ergoware, process of adapting and adapting. Systemware changes through the process of knowing and evolving. So mostly we talk about technological change process for Technoware through substitution and diffusion. They seems to occur following S-curve progress. Single S-curve to multiple S-curve. Let me use the lamp bulb example or electric bulb example to illustrate. This lowest one is the incandescent lamp. This is the S-curve progress. Next one is fluorescent lamp. The third one is LED lamp. Each one improves following an S-shaped pattern, but the overall improvement is also a S-shaped pattern. And this is important for us to remember that when we are talking about catching up with the developed countries, we have to remember that we are under two different situations. In one case, gradual improvement, in another case, rapid improvement or disruptive improvement. So here, I'm explaining the dominance principle using an example. I will use computer software and the semiconductor because to explain what I mean by dominance. For each, as I've given here in some examples, for each type of industries, we need all 5 technology components to produce it or to give service. Technoware, humanware, infoware, ergoware, and systemware. But their relative importance is not equal. Some are more important than less. So I've shown here only 2 most important ones. So if I come back now to the computer software, the 2 most important ones are humanware and systemware. On the other hand, if you look at the semiconductor industry, microchip, the 2 most important factors are Technoware and ergoware. Why do we have to consider this? Because this is where we have to make improvement to get maximum return on our investment. Due to resource constraint, dominant-based targeting of components for innovation enables optimization of return on investment. And one important factor for us to remember, for developing countries, it is critical to recognize that highly trained humanware, the integrated THIOC system management professionals who can combine artificial intelligence with human intelligence for new era goods production and our services providing industries for market competition is the most dominant component of the technological system, utilized by an enterprise attempting to catching up operation to join the global value chain in already established, universally demanded, improved goods and service industries, and be leapfrogging efforts of new wow products marketing in the emergent high-tech product-centric ascendancy to become global corporations. Next, I try to give a little bit more explanation regarding this catching up and leapfrogging operations. It is interesting to note technology system components, THIOC classification, and an appreciation of the condition that relative dominance of technology components utilized in any specific goods producing or services providing industry being uniquely different. Late starter developing countries with high quality and quantity of humanware can give significant advantage over developed countries where same quality humanware cost is very, very high. And I'm giving you two sets of examples where some countries have become very successful. In one case, where technology change process is gradual, means they're changing along the same S curve. The catching up process is technology transfer, reverse engineering, light research and development, and then subcontracting. On the other hand, where examples of goods and services production where Technoware change is disruptive, that means multiple S curves. Leapfrogging is possible by skipping some intermediate stages where we get frontier infoware that's robust R&D product innovation for the world. And there are many examples of countries and industrial areas where I can see this, they're catching up or some are leapfrogging. Most important point that I want to make here in the conclusion is that technology system component sophistication is a necessary condition, but is not a sufficient condition for acquiring competitive edge. Enterprises' technology capacities for productive gain is an essential prerequisite. So I'm going to talk about the productivity gain. This is very simple. Technology innovation productivity gain is a prerequisite for competitive edge. And we can look at the productivity function as shown here. Delta P, change in productivity, equals delta V over delta C. Delta P goes up when delta V goes up and delta C goes down, or both of them happen together. Now, it's possible for us to relate the cost reduction part, the delta C part of the above equation, to capability for operations optimization, which can be achieved through additional experiences that lead to higher efficiency in all operations of the firm. On the other hand, the value addition part of the above equation is related to competency for performance optimization, which can be achieved through elevated, often unique kind expertise that lead to effectiveness of the firm. And I would like you to note that technology capability accumulation refers to cost reduction through economy of scale and also efficiency in supply chain management. On the other hand, technology competency elevation includes value addition through economies of scope, and effectiveness of customer relationship management. Now we come to the strategy. The strategy part I can explain very simply by using an example of, say, Toyota car that we all buy. There are a number of Toyota cars available in the market for different market value. For the low value market, which is where the business people use price leadership as a strategy, have the Toyota Corolla. In the US, you can buy a Toyota Corolla for $15,000 US. This is one of the cheapest car, and the producer uses price leadership as a strategy, and the buyer also price is their criteria to select the car. But as we all know, the price is not always, or price is generally related with the quality of product. So cheap products are not necessarily of good quality. So some of us would like to buy, when we have a little bit more disposable income, we would like to buy a little bit of better car. So we move to a car that belongs to medium value market. For example, Toyota Camry, which in the US you can buy for about $20,000. $15,000 for Corolla, $20,000 for the Camry. But nowadays you also find that there are people who like certain features of a product, and they are prepared to pay a little bit more to get that special kind of car, and which is known nowadays the SUV. So RAV4 SUV is a car which is very popular nowadays. It costs about $25,000 US. So 15,000, 20,000, 25,000. This is the cheapest car, price leadership strategy of the business community. Second one is the medium value quality leadership strategy followed by the business enterprises, and RAV4 or SUV, the niche leadership strategy followed by the business strategy. But we all know that in the market, there are people who have plenty of money and they have image or status issue. They buy, instead of a RAV4, they will buy Lexus 350, RX 350. And this one costs $50,000. You can buy two RAV4s for the price of one, but still they sell a lot on this car. So we find the business strategies, which is customer sensitive. And what are the sensitivity on? Price sensitivity, quality sensitivity, niche sensitivity, and image sensitivity. So these are the standard business strategies. To meet or to cope with these business strategies, technologists use these strategies shown here on the left. Technology extender, continuing with old technologies for price sensitive market. Technology exploiter, using standard technologies for quality sensitive mid-value market. Technology follower strategy, applied advanced technologies for feature sensitive high-value market, and technology leader strategy, syndicating latest technology for image-sensitive pioneering market. So the most important point I want to make here at the bottom, progression from the low end to the top end market value position with a family of product offering is a proven pathway for sustainable prosperity of an enterprise in the fiercely competitive global marketplace. In this view graph, I'm combining everything that we've talked about so far, the core sophistication, productivity gain, and market value progression together to show how these things work. And we have to remember this is the innovation, the current S-curve, and here we're talking about innovation by moving to the next S-curve. So technology extender strategy, technology sophistication level is the lowest, technology exploiter, second level, But in these two, producer cost dominant strategies of capacity building, cost saving, speed, consistency, and technology transfer. Process innovation are the major focus in this area. On the other hand, technology follower and leader strategy. Here, technology level of sophistication is high, and here is the highest. These are customer value optimization strategies. And product innovation are the major focus of these strategies. So with that, I think I complete the first part. And I think I have managed to keep it in 1 hour. Cover the material in time. So shall we take a break for me to pick up a cup of coffee? 5 minutes break. Slide. Technology innovation capacity building options. Basically, there are two options, buy option and then make option. Buy option, generally we talk about technology transfer. Make option is technology development. And this is known to you, so I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to emphasize one point here, that there are limitations of technology transfer in buy option, because Technoware transfer is a business deal where price is determined by seller-buyer relative bargaining power. Humanware generally moves from poor workplace to high opportunity for growth workplace within the country and from one country to another country. Infoware transfer usually takes place for free from developing to developed countries, enterprises. And orgaware transfer may be free, but success depends on local work ethics and adequate adaptation. And sysnetware transfer is done by ICT and cloud providers, provided we are prepared to pay the service fees. So most important for us to know that when we talk about buy option and appropriate technology, and note that I left earlier, but I did not say anything, is that the buy option is valid only for Technoware. For other things, we do not have the buy option. It has to be developed and sometimes stolen, sometimes acquired through other means. So in the global competitive world, the buy and make option is available only for Technoware. Next, supporting technology transfer and technology development. Institutions that we have in our countries, and how do they work? For the established, mature goods industries, we go through this process of assembling products from imported parts for lower end of the market, usually under joint venture and taking advantage of local factor endowment, say resource endowments. If you have certain resources available, so we take advantage of that. So we start assembling products. Then manufacturing simple parts to assemble with core modular imported parts, usually under license. Then we move into manufacturing of core and essential parts for entire product sold in the local market under own name, and eventually original designing and manufacturing better and newer product lines for local and global market. So this is the general pattern. And here, the first, you see technology extender exploiter strategy works here, and technology follower, technology leader strategy works here. But for these, developing countries need a lot of help. And this is the one that I show here. They need help from here to there. And I'll talk about the need in a minute. Just let's come to the right-hand side. We talk about new technology-based industries. Most large multinational corporations do not need any help from the government because they have their everything by themselves. They can give subcontract, they can buy things. And sometimes many of these large corporations have their own university and R&D lab also to do whatever they need. But small and medium scale enterprises need help. What kind of help they need? Product related here at the bottom, product or related industry-specific incubators linking innovation triangle. I'm going to explain that a little bit later. Excuse me. Active intermediaries, information, intellectual property right, venture capital, standardization, and all of these that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And then technology transfer center here. But here in the middle, I try to put some of the institutions that we have, but we have to make them work properly. These are the general national innovation system laboratories. What are those? Professional laboratories, which produces humanware and systemware. Scientific laboratories, infoware and orgaware. Academic labs, producing humanware and infoware. And industrial labs, technoware and orgaware. So I make the statement, for global market entry, local firms need technology factor creation support of local NIS entities. These, as well as some of the things that I put at the bottom. Now, let's look at the R&D work spectrum for both buy and make technology option. Here, the pool and the market pool and the demand pool. New scientific knowledge, push innovation path. Scientific knowledge, research and development, manufacturing, marketing. On the other hand, market pool, from marketing, product concept, research and development, manufacturing. Generally, R&D work focus on acquiring competitiveness in the global marketplace through external dependence reduction. Keep that in mind. When we have in technology transfer, we are all dependent on external. So we have to try to gradually get out of this external dependence. We move into reliance on independent decisions, and we move into global product creation. So R&D work, that's why I say, can be done by the firm in-house, which is make Technoware option, or R&D work can also be done by contractual transaction, external by Technoware option. But even for buy option, some in-house R&D work, including reverse engineering, is imperative for acquiring mastery. So here I'm trying to show you the full spectrum of R&D activity. Gradual and incremental type Technoware innovation, mastering imported Technoware, adapting imported Technoware, acquiring design capability, then moving into this radical and disruptive type of innovation, creating new products, production facilities building, differentiated product marketing. And at the bottom, I show the same thing, minimum R&D here, small, moderate R&D here, moderate to high R&D here, very high R&D investment for this. Intensity of research and development effort for successful technology transfer is low, but the intensity of research and development efforts for own Technoware development is very high. And finally, for process innovation, technology transfer is perhaps okay, but for product innovation, technology development is essential. And I would like to repeat this, something that I have said earlier, to make it more clear that product innovation and process innovation occurs in a sequence, as shown here in the bottom. We see product innovation, which is followed by process innovation. Then we get into again product innovation and process innovation. But how are they different? The S-curve patterns are different. For product innovation, we need, this is disruptive type of innovation, and creativity focused and new product development is the aim. On the other hand, incremental innovation, which is process innovation, continuous improvement, learning focused. And again, you can see S-curve, oldest S-curve, intermediate S-curve, latest S-curve. But again, all together, we take a overall S-curve. And for an S-curve, the pattern is takeoff, increasing, increasingly, increasing, decreasingly, and decline. Innovation on the current S-curve is incremental change. innovation to this next S-curve is a disruptive change. Most of the things have to be changed. Now, let's get into the National Innovation System. This is the overall picture of the National Innovation System. I would like you all to focus first at this is something that I put in very recently. Maybe Ramanathan also did not say it before. Just to make it very clear, because I find this is a very big problem in most of our countries, that we do not realize that we set up incubators next to undergraduate universities where nobody is producing any egg that we are going to incubate. So I put that at the center. Remember, if we do not produce any egg, then what's the point of having an incubator? Incubator, the whole purpose is hatching the chick. So I put that in the middle. A National Technology Innovation System comprises integrated intermediate agencies that serve as linked infrastructure for the generation, production, application, and diffusion of locally made techno innovations for local enterprises. And what are these? Here, 3 R&D type of institution: academic, science and technology institutions, public and private research and development institutions, goods and services type of enterprises. These are the 3 types who have to work together to have a comprehensive innovation system. But note, I have not shown the government yet, which I'm going to show a little bit later. Here we find around this intellectual property regulation, information services, knowledge profession association, venture capital, design tool engineering, standards and certification agencies. These are the integrated system that gives us the total national innovation system. But I have put 2 here. Critical mass is an important consideration. Sometimes we forget, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And connectivity is also very important. The problem that we have in developing countries, that we have all of these institutions that I mentioned here, but they do not have the critical mass. We also have all of these institutions that I mentioned here, but they're not connected properly, so they're ineffective. In developed countries, market mechanism is a driver for linking all of these entities. In the developing countries, the government has to do something to make sure that we have these linkages properly. So that's bring us to the role of the government. Here. Now, my incubator has got 4 quadrants. On this side, research 1 universities. On this side, state-of-the-art laboratories, research 1 universities, private SMEs, and now I have added the government. What is happening? Science and technology sector. Research 1 university belongs to the science and technology sector. They provide the consultants. New concepts are created here. New product concepts, new process concept, all the new ideas, the egg that we are going to hatch in the incubator comes from here. State-of-the-art laboratory, all technical expertise, new solutions are developed here. How to convert that knowledge to some product. Research and development sector. Private sector, goods and services sector. They're the one who take the risk, produce the product, and sell it to the market. Without them, everybody is going to waste their money in producing new things. This is the most important one, new product launchers and entrepreneurs who take risk. Now let me talk about the government. Regulation and facilitating sector. I'd like to bring to your attention that many people think that government's role is control, but I learned from Dr. Che, the Korean experiment, that government's role is to facilitate. Yes, they regulate. They regulate environmental degradation, they regulate standards and many other things, but their main goal is to help the national technology innovation system is by facilitating the linkages and other things. So repeating because I'm going to get into very soon on the policies, we have to remember the crippling shortcomings. University centers of excellence, core areas, and state-of-the-art research lab expertise have utter mismatch. We have universities which are centers of excellence, but their area of centers of excellence, and we have laboratories which are very good in some time, but they do not match. If you do not match, then you do not have this synergy to get into help for the incubator and startup business. Second point is absence of legally bound agreements for collaboration among innovation partners. We have so many meetings, industry, academia, cooperation, R&D, academia, cooperation. But these are only meetings, but we need legally binding agreements so that they will work together. So that's also missing. I want to show the incubator a little bit more because this is very important. The more I study this, I find that one of the problems in most of our developing countries is that we do not take the incubator concept very seriously. We do not understand some of the nuances, some of the important cultural factors. So in order to emphasize that, I'm repeating some of the things for you here today. So this is the incubator. Again, what is happening in the incubator? Design, lab research, lab development, and scale up. These are the things we do. But the idea comes to the incubator from the R&D, from the research one universities, or from the customer surveys. Enterprises who do very good customer survey, they get the idea for some new product. Universities get the idea of knowledge push, supply pull. Remember, we talked about the two ways. One is the knowledge push, the other is supply pull, market pull. So these are from where ideas coming in. And these are people who are individual thinkers, mind using people who give these ideas to the incubator. But this is useless unless we have on the right hand side smart, daring, energetic, do it entrepreneurial action persons who start a business, take the risk because they get money out of it. And at the bottom, the same thing I'm repeating here, which is very clear. Problem, opportunity identification, solution, validity, opportunity, and gather requirements, production, product, lab stage, unit, and scale up, and then finally production, launching business. I also want to present one thing that is very common nowadays. Many people in our countries discuss a lot about something, a fancy name called triple helix. What is a triple helix? Because it has got a shape of triple helix. But most important for us to note that there are three parts, three agents for this triple helix. Triple helix is a substantial connectivity among three distinctive types of organizations, which include both public and private institutions legally. I could not say more. This is the term that we have to keep in mind, legally bound to promote startup business ventures for economic development. So this is a public-private partnership where both public investment and return as well as private investment and return. And the three partners are government, academia, and industry. And the landscape is S&T Park, Technology Transfer Office, but most important is intellectual property creation and protection. Of course, incubator, accelerator, venture funding, and startup, which I'm going to talk a little bit more. I also want to talk a little bit about something which has become very popular nowadays called innovation hotspots. Okay. Now, Michael Porter, he made something very popular by saying that we need related industry cluster. Now that concept has been misused by the developing countries in many ways, where we do not get the result that we want. Related industry cluster has got a different meaning, which will become very clear if I explain to you, this is what that innovation hotspot really means. In an innovation hotspot, we have world-class R&D institution. And when I say world-class R&D institution, means it has got all the laboratory facilities, equipments to do the research for the area that you're interested in. We also have research universities. Now, this is another problem we have in most of our developing countries. We have universities, and generally now, even in Bangladesh, I find they've got 100 new universities, but all offering business program undergraduate level. Please try to understand that the undergraduate program does not produce an egg that you can put in the incubator for producing a new product. So we need universities which are research one type, public or private entity sponsored research university with state-of-the-art doctoral program, because that's where new eggs are produced. Then let me talk about the related industry cluster. Related industry cluster is if you have some industries which are in the same general product area, that they have their own interest in factor generation. Factor generation means creating those technoware, humanware, infoware, orgoware, systemware. And Michael Porter gave few examples. Germany for printing press industry, Italy for ceramic tile industry, Japan for robotic industry. Why? All the related industries are located there, and in their own interest, though they're not very big by themselves, but they cooperate together to have their own university, to have their own R&D institution, so that they can produce new products for their industries. So here, related industry cluster, startup companies or outposts of giant corporations engaged in operationalization of THIOC for rapid commercialization of improved or totally new goods and services. But having these do not help only, because we have to remember the fourth one I put here, many times people do not pay attention to this. You must have a facility for mingling of people in that area where SLT Park or in that research triangle or whatever you call it. You must have a place where people from these three types of organizations, R&D institution, academic institution, and industrial enterprises meet together informally, casually, so that they exchange tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is very important for creation of new product. So entities, so here, Italy's recreational and sporting facilities that bring professionals to close contact for invisible fusion of crucial knowledge, tacit, explicit, as well as protected on related THIOC. Without this, we do not get the innovation that we're interested in. And here at the bottom, I'm showing you the two types of research area triangle and the interest area triangle. Academic R&D basic research, independent applied research, and development research. And here, public-private meeting point, knowledge push and market pull intersection point, and interdisciplinary science area, the fusion point that we talked about earlier. So we have nowadays many incubators here, and even some innopolis in some countries. And in South Korea, Daedok is a city which is designed for innovation. In Japan, Scuba, whatever you call it. In US, Silicon Valley is a very good example. So there are some of these examples in the world, but this is again something very important, becoming very critical and essential for industrial technology innovation. That was part 4. Now I'm moving into part 5, where I'm going to talk about the policy issues coming out of the problems that I'm going to identify. Some I have identified already, some I'm going to identify now. This is a general picture. Remember, in my part 2, I started that our goal is to achieve prosperity. In the beginning, I said we want to reduce the gap. What gap? Prosperity gap. But through technological innovation capacity building. How does it happen? Here, we start with technology innovation, climate creation, culture creation, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. Then STEM education, science, technology, engineering, math education, investment in that. SMT R&D infrastructure building. Incubation. This is the most important part that we talked about already. And then intellectual property rights protection. Without this, nobody, private sector is not going to invest in R&D unless the intellectual right is protected and they can get return on the investment. As a result of that, we have competitive goods production and services provision, and our game is sustainable economic development. The vicious circle here I have put down here for you to take a look. This is very common in most of our countries, and I don't think I need to discuss about that. Now, basically, I would like to start with that we have in the developing countries, we have to design our system with 2 choices in mind. Right? This is the system. Foresight analysis, SWOT analysis, all of these. We need to design our projects, investment projects for industrial technology innovation. Okay, but let's look at this. First one, I call it smart choice. We want to become world leader in selective goods and services. Every country. That is what I tried to say in the very beginning, that it has to be make some, buy some. In order to, we cannot make everything that we need because we do not have the resources. So we're going to buy a lot. But in order to buy anything, we have to sell something. So it's a make some and buy some. And which one we're going to make? Where we can catch up. So we put our high priority for catching up in some selected traditional established industries that inherently require proportionately less technoware assets and superior humanware assets for manufacturing. And you see the software industry, how India is leading the world now because superior humanware assets and the industry requires very little technoware assets. So we have to identify some of those areas where we can catch up. Catching up is very temporary, as we talked about, as I've given you some examples where things move from country to country, from enterprise to enterprise. So we have to become also a global leader in at least 1 or 2 types of industries. Finland, Nokia, under one company, is able to lead that country to prosperity because Nokia spends more than $8 billion for R&D per year. And what are they spending their money on? This ICT, information communication technology. Cell phone is one of them, but they're working on some related areas also. So here, we would like to have emerging global digital industries because this is the future. I was very happy to hear in the morning, our 2 guest speakers emphasized future, innovation, digital industry, digital technology. So we have to move into there because in the digital industry area, we do not need very high technoware capability, but we need very high humanware capability. And in most of our developing countries, fortunately, we have high human work capability, and also we can train others in some selected areas. So top priority for leapfrogging is select emerging industry 4.0 type that inherently require available artificial intelligence integrated Technoware assets and highly trained humanware assets for manufacturing. So this is a general plan that I think we can consider. Now, I'm going to talk about the predicaments, the problems, and the issues that we have to deal with. First, common predicaments in developing countries. And I qualify here that though I'm now speaking for Sri Lanka primarily, but there are some participants from Indonesia and from other parts. These are, in general, this is a collection of predicaments that I put together, not necessarily valid for any particular country. So for Sri Lanka, all of these may not be valid, but there may be some others which are more valid, and you can add them. And this is one of the beauty of my view graphs. They are very open, open slides where you can eliminate some and you can add something more, something different to make it more appropriate for your situation. And then hopefully you can use it. The common predicaments regarding generation of fertile new ideas. Remember I said that was one of the critical problems we have, is still in most of our countries. But I see Taiwan has moved ahead. Otherwise, see, the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company became #1 in the world in such a short period because they focused on that. They did a lot of work to emphasize that, anticipating that this is the future. And they could beat big giants like Intel and Samsung. What are the predicaments here? Limited number of research one university with negligible number of high potential ideas produced for commercialization by innovators. Okay. We have very limited. Some countries, I do not know, because I do not want to offend anybody. Your university that you belong to, you can call it the top level university in the world. But I would like to ask you this question, that you can consider yourself as top level if you're producing eggs, top level, newest eggs that your incubators can convert to goods and services for your enterprises. So we have limited number of them. Next, universities attempt to become centers of excellence in numerous areas with very limited resources. Our country is poor. Our universities, similarly compared to developed countries, have limited resources. So that limited resources, if we spread it to too many areas, then we do not naturally have good impact. Due to lack of resources, actual research activities are determined by external funding sources' interest. And this is inherently problematic because the external funding source is going to give you money to do research, which is relevant for them, not for our countries. Frontier knowledge specialization areas have inadequate faculty numbers. Sometimes it is interesting to find that in some universities, they have one faculty member who is highly qualified, highly experienced from world top university, but one faculty member cannot have one department. You need more than one particular person to have some kind of an interaction, collaboration to produce some new ideas. And finally, academic programs emphasize only, this is another thing that I've learned from Dr. Che. This is changing slowly, but I think this may still be true in most of our developing countries. Our academic programs are conducted by people with highly educated from developed countries, and they know a lot, and they give that knowledge to the students. So our students know a lot, but they do not do anything. Because this is what Dr. Che told me a long time ago, that we emphasize knowing rather than doing. And until and unless we start emphasizing doing, we will not be able to produce products ourselves for the global market. Okay, so these are the generation of new ideas. Now let's come to this side. Market research, the supply side. We talked about the, demand, market side or demand side story. Private enterprises do not have any market pressure for developing competitiveness through R&D. Many times we give tariff protection. So there's no pressure to become competitive and to spend R&D. Private SMEs do not have necessary financial resources for product innovation related investments. Private sector enterprises do not try to join the global value chain through buy and make Technoware efforts because of financial constraint and also no pressure. Even for catching up through technology transfer, enterprises do not get help for bargaining with TNCs. This is one of the common problems because as you remember, I mentioned earlier, the Technoware transfer price depends on the relative bargaining position. So our small enterprises are not in a good bargaining position to get a good deal from developed country transnational enterprises. Finally, I said S&T parks are used in most of our developing countries by multinational companies, mostly for tax benefits, because government gets a lot of tax benefits for work done in that area. So they set up a show or shop to get tax benefits. Now let's come to the national government initiatives here in the middle. So managed through high-powered councils or committees with inactive ex officio members. Think about it. We have in most of our countries very high-powered council for science and technology, for innovation. But who are the members of that council? Ex officio members of various ministries, secretaries of various ministries. But they're moved and they're members as ex officio. And if you check how often do they meet? Once in 3 months or once in 6 months, and there's no continuity. Established regional industry cluster for local employment generation and investment distribution, but not the essential relative industry cluster for technology factory creation. This is the point I tried to make earlier. We talk about a lot that we are having related industry cluster. Instead of all the industries in the capital city, we are now moving into 3 different cities. But we are not having a related industry cluster. We're having same type of industries at 3 different places. Why? That is a distribution of employment generation for the country. Good. It's helping us a lot, different areas. But that is not helping in the factor creation, because for factor creation, we need related industry cluster. Third point, public sector R&D investment reform, R&D institutional reforms by simply changing names generally end up as lip service only. And I will explain that a little bit more when I talk about KIST and KIST equivalent we try to make in our countries. Lack of realization that the purpose of public sector R&D investment is indeed to foster R&D work by private sector. This is another point that we have to understand, that public sector R&D institutions are there to show the path for private sector enterprises to go for R&D. Initially, they help, but it's only infant industry protection type. Gradually, they should move out and the private sector themselves should pick up. Then failure to ensure synergy among the S&T and R&D institutional expertise. Again, very common, because traditionally we've got certain R&D institutions and their expertise in some areas, and we've got now the new universities, we've got expertise in completely different areas, and so there's no synergy for collaborative work. The lower part is, I would request you to read because most of the thing I have already explained in earlier charts. The common predicaments regarding national innovation in system infrastructure and innovation climate. Now I get back to the incubator one more time to emphasize the difference between mechanics and culture. Or remember, we talked about the four partners: university, laboratory, government, and industry. These are the four stakeholders for our incubator. And these are the things. Universities bring in knowledge, big data, bright ideas. Laboratories have professionals, equipment, and they help here doing the laboratory work that we're going to talk about. Enterprises, startup, wow, venture capital, get cash. The government, facilitator, ease of doing business, open to global competition, and some regulation and protection. So what is the mechanics that we find in most of the countries? Research, development, deployment. That mechanical institutions, mechanized institutions, or institutions that are part of that mechanics of R&D commercialization are there in our countries. But what is lacking in many of our countries is what I tried to put at the bottom here: commitment and collaboration for R&D commercialization success. Commitment and collaboration. And commitment is shown in terms of where you put the money, how much investment, how much legally binding investment, how much investment you are making for return for both the private sector and the public sector. That's what determines the commitment. Why? For R&D commercialization. And that is what I talk about as the innovation culture. Without that, we will have institutions. We have, and we're going to have more. We're going to spend more money for R&D, but we may not be able to get the results that we want. Now, this one I put specifically for many of us who are interested in the South Korean model. And I get this question all the time: why we are not able to replicate the South Korean model? In fact, that is the model that I presented here also. The algorithm, you remember in the beginning, I said we focus on effective industrial technology and innovation management to achieve competitive advantage in selected industries, to make our national industries be global players so that we'll have sustainable development in globally connected economies. That's my NIGI model, but which is basically the South Korean model that I learned from Dr. Che. Here, it seems to me that this model represent herein is adapted, this road is a proven South Korean model, but this roadmap has difficult terrain for replication by developing countries. Why this? And this is the point I'm trying to make. Model replication success remain problematic due to emphasis on R&D infrastructure building only, without adequate attention to creating the needed innovation culture. And I'll explain more about this innovation culture in the next view graph. Now, this is a very simple view graph, a lot of text. I'm not going to read all of those. I'm going to talk about only the KIST and the Ministry of Science and Technology part here. As a matter of fact, I have a paper published very recently, which I can send you a copy, anybody interested, which will give you the background and the analysis of this 10 things that I have listed here. Why the Asian developing countries found it difficult to replicate the South Korean success. But now let me talk about the KIST and MOST. KIST is very well known, Korean Institute of Science and Technology, very well known as the forerunner or as the starter of South Korean industrial technology-based economic development. So many countries started to have their own KIST equivalent. So what they did, they changed the name. In many places, in my country, in Bangladesh, the Bangladesh Scientific and Industrial Research is called now BIST, Bangladesh Institute of Science and Technology. I think the same thing was in Sri Lanka. And a long time ago, it was Sri Lanka Institute for Scientific and Industrial Research, which is now called SIST, Sri Lanka Institute for Science and Technology. But unfortunately, the practice has not changed. In three most critical factors in which the practice has not changed, I try to list here. The Korea Institute of Science and Technology replication remained problematic due to, number one, not ensuring that private sector enterprise funded R&D activities are kept secret. Somehow we feel that government funded R&D institutions are open to public. Anyone can come in there and find what are they doing. But private sector is not going to give money to do R&D if that information is given to everyone else. So in KIST, when KIST was set up in those early days, there's a parallel institution called KAIST, Korea Advanced Institute of Science, which was for public. But KIST was guarded for its secrecy. Nobody could go there and find out who is doing what research for home. This is a very important factor. Not selecting high priority, high potential country advantage areas of R&D programs. Generally, we try to do the same thing. Almost every country is getting involved with same kind of research. KIST, when it was set up, they did a more than 6 months study, very thorough study of identifying 5 or 6, I think 7 areas where they should get involved. And this was done very thoroughly, and they selected only 7 areas to get involved, and then the progress from there. And finally, this is another very critical one, using the academic criteria of rewarding publications. In other words, in our R&D institution, people have ranks called like junior scientific officer, senior scientific officer, principal scientific officer, and they are promoted the same way as assistant professor, associate professor, and full professors. On what basis? Number of papers published. It's obvious. If we use promotion criteria as number of papers published, then where would you expect me? If I'm working there, what would you expect me to do? I'm going to emphasize publication. And those are publications based on research, which is of interest for the developed world because they paid the money. And we publish those papers in the international journals, not useful for our countries. So this is a very critical factor that we must remember. Now let's come to the Ministry of Science and Technology. Where's my pointer? My computer is playing games with me. Okay. Ministry of Science and Technology. The Korean Ministry of Science and Technology most replication remained problematic due to, again, I'm giving 3 very critical problems. Appointment of the weakest and youngest minister as the Minister for Science and Technology in most of our developing countries. Minister for Science and Technology has to coordinate so many other activities of so many other ministries. Can you expect that possible by a weak and young minister? As a matter of fact, if you allow me, and Ramanathan, I would like you to confirm that this is what I learned from Dr. Che, that he was Minister for Science and Technology. He was the first Minister for Science and Technology for many years, but he used to tell us, look, my title is the Minister for Science and Technology, but I'm the secretary. The real minister is the President Park, because that's the commitment That's the blessing, that's the support he had for all the work that was done by the Minister of Science and Technology. This is one thing that is lacking in our country. Second one, large power distance with other ministers and coalition government partners, other members and coalition government partners. Generally, because this is the weakest. So nowadays, we have coalition government in most of our countries. So the weakest partner gets the position for science and technology, and a young person is appointed as science and technology minister. So what can you expect from that ministry? And finally, in some countries, expectation of super achievements without direct blessing of the head of state. And I'll give you the example of Indonesia. B.J. Habibie. Habibie was like a super minister. He was science and technology minister for 25 years. He was also president for a short period. He developed many industries, but one person cannot lead in so many different directions. There are 10 strategic industries that Habibie used to chair at one time, but except for the aircraft industry, none others got the real attention. And even in the aircraft industry, because of the global circumstances, it has become a good subcontractor now, but it is not one of the leading aircraft producing industry in the world. So these are some lessons that I have learned, which you may find useful. Now, since I talked about culture, I want to give you a little bit more about the culture. And here, the golden rule for innovation culture in enterprises. Professionals feel free to share ideas, opinions, and criticisms. Professionals understand the risk and reward structure. Professionals believe in continuous improvement, and managers are committed to winning the future. I was very happy to hear this word future this morning from our distinguished guests, who all of them said, future, innovation for future, not for past, not for today. So future orientation. What is the future orientation is? So winning the future means here, a passion, a spirit of innovation, teamwork. A spirit of innovation, but I put that word teamwork. You cannot achieve innovation alone. So we have to have a passion for the spirit of innovation, and we must have spirit of teamwork for winning the future. And that also requires a mindset, because we are reminded of the sustainable development problem, a mindset of cybersecurity, carbon neutral, zero corruption. And these are cautionary signs that we have to remember. Now, having said all of this, rest is very straightforward, and I'm going to go through very quickly. These are, for us, for any country to become an innovation economy, these are the fundamental requirements. These are the mitigating constraints, and these are the commitment factors that we need to reinforce. Fundamental recognition. As people are creative, you will find that I'm repeating some of the things that I mentioned already earlier. As people are creative, and as they like to compete, technology innovation is in perpetual motion, thereby contributing to intensification of globalization. In the current innovation economy order, all entrepreneurs attempt to achieve sustainable economic growth through product process innovations that can bestow global competitive advantage. That's the first recognition. Second one, competing enterprises are found to pay attention to the technological system innovations by technology components, Technoware, Humanware, Infoware, Orgaware, Systemware, Sophistication, integrated with complementarily tied technology capacity development and market-based technology strategies progression as levers in the toolbox. Enterprises acquire goods and services innovation through commercialization of R&D results in incubators that are legally joined work facilities, bringing together professionals from 4 NTIS infrastructure, research universities, R&D institutions, goods and services providers, goods and services providing enterprises, and government regulatory and facilitating agencies for product, process, technology innovation. Summary of everything that I've said so far. Now, what are the constraints that we have to mitigate? Creativity promoting STEM concentrated higher education institutions that emphasize doing over knowing. Our people know a lot, but we have to learn how to do things by combining state-of-the-art knowledge acquisition with interdisciplinary scientific laboratory-based practical research problems of world-class PhD level for selected high potential product process innovation. Next one, cutting edge research and development activities performed in the advanced academic institutions as well as public and private R&D institutions have to be state-of-the-art level frontier knowledge driven in carefully selected priority areas followed in STEM PhD education. Ensure R&D work at the intersection of market pool and knowledge push, as well as PPP, public-private partnership areas, strictly keeping all R&D work client secrecy. Establish incubators as legal entities, not just verbally agreed with no joint investment for joint returns. Provide support facilities for tool building and designing, prototype building and testing, and the startup unit development. Finally, provide the most important ingredient of S&T Park and Technology Transfer Office, which is IPR protection, intellectual property right, IPR, intellectual property right protection service. Overcome chronic problems with the agency's lack of minimum critical mass, lack of legal linkages, shortage of venture financing, and avoid lip service for organizational reform. Okay, and what are the reforms that we need, what commitments we need for these reforms are shown here now in my third column. Wholehearted commitment at every level, enterprise, industry, and nation for winning the future through innovation. And I can put there industrial technology innovation. Of course, we need agricultural innovation. We need innovation in every area in general. Nationally supported innovation project selection areas based on global foresight. What is foresight? Opportunities and threats analysis. And national insight, that's our strength and weakness analysis, studies by knowledgeable national professionals. Mandatory application of transparent decision-making criteria function having 4 dimensions: innovativeness, competitiveness, attractiveness, and righteousness. This I'm going to explain a little bit more a little later. Regulatory oversight for intellectual property rights, fiscal financial incentives by procurement contracts. Promoting a culture that demands total commitment for continuous improvement, Kaizen, and marketing and making disproportionately high allocation of research for selected national priority areas for competition. And finally, self-reliance with self-confidence being the mantra for development in a competitive setting. Note, this is a note to me and through me to all of you. Nobody can expect to become a globally competitive enterprise through guidance and assistance from competitors. Foreign aid is not going to help in this area. Finally, this is the policy, entire picture of the policy regime. And I do not have to read this because all of this I have explained in the earlier slides. And I move to my last part, part 6, concluding remarks and leadership challenges. The first one, critical leadership challenge is to focus on concepts. This I have learned from my mentor. He said that earlier days successful models of other countries or other enterprises are generally not useful to changes in the situation. However, many core concepts representing the successes may be valuable. And here is a partial list of some of those. Make some and buy some technology strategy. Okay, I explained that already. Innovation. Innovation is a teamwork. It is among the 4 partners: knowledge, industry, research, and government. These are the stakeholders. Teamwork, innovation, concept. Data to intelligence derivation. The concept is from data. When you get meaning, it becomes information. When you put a context, it becomes knowledge. When you get some insight from that knowledge, that's what is intelligence. Intelligence, in short, is actionable knowledge. The other concept that we have learned: developing countries have to start with innovation and later go for invention. High-thinking science laboratories or scientists would like to become the global science leaders, but we do not have the money to do that. Because why? For invention, you spend money to get new knowledge. For innovation, from idea, you get money. So what shall we do? We have to first start with innovation. And then when we become relatively rich, we can go for invention and go for science. And then these are the 2 things that we already talked about: turning ideas into value through creative innovation, to join global value chain, and to be a global corporation. And finally, I must say that we have to have the passionate hard work with self-help mindset, leveraging innovation for competitive advantage, and keeping in mind no aid, no pain, no gain. Finally, this is my motto, which I used and I'm now presenting at the end, because everything I have said so far will perhaps justify why I coined this phrase long time ago. That technology is a game for the rich, a dream for the poor, and a key for the wise. Technological innovation is the master key for sustainable economic development through industries globalization in the current competitive world setting. You see here, technology innovation is the master key for turning new ideas into cash through business by acquiring global market competition. And here, the mechanics: turning ideas to cash by global product marketing. How? Idea goes to the global market, building presence in the global market, but most important, in selective goods and services, so that we have strong business outcome, we get cash. Using Michael Porter's idea of every organization has got some primary function and some supporting function. These are the technology components that we talked about, or technology levers that we have to pull, that we talked about, are summarized here. For the primary activities, goods production and services provision, primary activities. Where is my pointer? Oh, here. Innovations for goods production and services provision. And there are 4 things: component sophistication, capabilities accumulation, competencies elevation, and strategies progression. And this I have explained earlier. For the supporting function, here, enterprise resources management, enterprise quality assurance management, supply chain management, and enterprise excellence management. A summary form, what we have already explained. This one, to make it very clear, that though we start with technology transfer, but that's not the end of it. Technology transfer is the beginning. We have to move into technology development in order to have industrial technology. So these are pictures to indicate what I'm trying to say. At the bottom here, R&D investment is necessary for both technology transfer and technology development options. For technology transfer, relatively small R&D investment is necessary for digestion of imported technologies, and at the same time, learning for technology development that calls for robust and substantial R&D investment. Moreover, technology transfer may be good enough for process innovation, enabling catching up, but without technology development for product innovation, leapfrogging is quite impossible. And I gave you some interesting remark here of the usefulness of the THIOC taxonomy. First, remember this is on the left-hand side, this is the technology diagram, dynamically interrelated components, Technoware, humanware, infoware, orgaware, systemware. But here, deliver STEM proficient humanware, which I think we have plenty in our countries. They provide a bedrock for building global companies that are highly lucrative Industry 4.0 type enterprises. What are those companies? System integrating firms, hardware system integrators, and professional services firms, which are software application integrators. So these are potential areas for us to get into, to jump into, and to eventually lead the world in selected areas. Finally, I want to show this cartoon to you to point out the technology system component taxonomy and appreciation that relative dominance of technology components utilized in any specific goods producing or services providing enterprise is uniquely determined. Developing countries with high quantity and quality of humanware have significant advantage over developed countries where same type humanware cost is very high. And a cartoon here, which you may take a look. This was the first cartoon I could put in a UN document. Before that and after that, no UN document was ever produced with a cartoon. And in fact, the executive secretary refused to allow me to distribute the document that I produced with this cartoon at that time. But you see, something that I could not say, but I could show through that cartoon, that infoware is closely guarded. This poor villager is buying this computer with foreign currency, but the infoware is closely guarded for bargaining power to sell at premium price. That I could not say in words, but the cartoon did help me. This is perhaps the second last cartoon, second last view graph that I would like to describe. This is the balance scorecard that I'm talking about, I mentioned earlier. A comprehensive assessment scorecard for industrial product development project management and funding should be utilized with a balanced set of criteria function that incorporates all four essential dimensions: innovativeness, competitiveness, attractiveness, and righteousness. Innovativeness are the innovation factors, can include the innovation factors. Competitiveness includes the competition factors. Attractiveness includes the performance factors. And righteousness includes the responsibility factors, the social, moral, environmental responsibility. Do not have to. Some people try to use mathematics, but sophisticated mathematics can hardly be used for things where something we can measure and other things we cannot measure. So it is better to have a qualitative scorecard using a qualitative assessment factor. But remember, the factors that we use must be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Now I have a few more slides just to bring to your attention there's something that we can learn from others. This is some lessons that we can learn from the Chinese culture and something from the Japanese culture. Very interesting, very important. In Chinese, the word crisis, if you break it down, it consists of two letters. First one says danger. Second one says opportunity. In every crisis, there's both danger and opportunity. This is where disruptive technologies come into the picture. People say danger, and some of us, we stay away from that. But the Chinese jump into that. There's a possibility of getting into some new area. There's always a golden chance of getting into the new opportunities. And then the Japanese, the Kaizen, continuous innovation. This is perhaps the basis or rationale or methodology for technology innovation. It has to be a continuous process. And the word Kaizen means make better. Kai means change, Yen means good. Change for good, change better. So Kaizen. Anything that we do, after we have done this, we start redoing it to make it better. That's how innovation happens. So leapfrogging opportunity in crisis, disruptive change type product innovation, and catching up opportunity in Kaizen, gradual change type process innovation. But I know some of my friends may say that I am emphasizing too much on finance, prosperity. Here's my statement. I know nothing can buy happiness, but money can buy everything else. Here is something that I have learned from my guru, Dr. Che. Instead of blindly following the successful models of other countries or other enterprises, developing countries have to rely on the adaptation of proven and clearly useful concepts to the current problem setting. Do it yourself. Self-determination. Dr. Che, who was the founder president of, written as CHOI, Choi, but pronounced in Korea as Che, founder president of KIST, and first S&D minister of South Korea. And he gave us this one more cautionary remark. Adaptive implementation of a crude plan is undeniably much better than endless bickering for the preparation of a comprehensive grand plan that is never wholeheartedly accepted by all and thus usually remains unimplemented. This is one of the problems we have. We are in perpetual planning exercise because we're never satisfied. Something, it has to be made a grand plan, but by the time we go to the grand plan, nothing gets implemented. Final slide of this presentation. The ultimate reckoning for developing countries. I'm quoting two people that you all know very well. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, Professor Yunus from Bangladesh. He talked about the Grameen Bank, where he said that banks do not give money to those who need money. And remember in the opening session, I brought up that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs chat, where we find that banks take money from innovators. Not only they do not give money to those who need, but they take money from the innovators. If I try to generalize Professor Yunus' statement, I can say that currently established global systems only help those already well established. Coming to our neighbor, Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, who moved his country from the third world to the first world in a very short period. He says, if you only follow someone else's footsteps, you will always be behind. Industrial Technology Innovation Management for prosperity in the wow tech era calls for self-reliance as virtue. That's all. Now I'll get out of the share mode and we can move into the question and answer session.
All right, thank you very much for that amazing and insightful presentation, Professor Sharif. So like you said, now we'd like to move on to the question and answer session where the participants can send in any questions that they have. And of course, I would like to invite Professor Samara Terichagode to moderate these sessions.
Yes, may I make a suggestion that the questions be put in the chat box and the moderator, you please collect them together to ask me important, relevant questions, few of them, because I don't think we'll have enough time to answer all of the questions.
Yeah, exactly correct.
There are only 3 questions.
So I will follow the question that I get from you. Thank you.
Yeah, we have very few questions, right? But I would like to invite all the other participants also to maybe ask any question. So if you have, so we'll take question from Sashika bin Fernando, right? So she's asking Professor 2 questions. One question is 2 parts there, right? Until others are putting maybe the questions there, so we'll ask that particular question. Will standard manufacturing be losing its edge with 3D printing? She's asking about this, maybe the standard manufacturing maybe losing its edge because of this 3D printing, right? As parts or machines can be printed on plotters than made in China or Sri Lanka. So he's asking that, I think these parts and machines can be printed. So then what will happen to this standard manufacturing?
Would you like me to respond to that? Shall I?
Sorry?
Do you want me to respond to this question?
Yeah,
as you say, or I will wait for.
No, that's a question.
I can take that. Okay, I'll be very happy to take that. I think this is very interesting and important question. You know, I will give you a little bit of history. When I first came to US to do my master's degree, my master's thesis was on, because at that time, computers were becoming very popular and people were afraid that we are going to lose in the developing countries, we're going to lose out because we have people working where computers are going to work in future, right? Losing our employment. So this is a similar situation now, but we have an advantage. But first, let me give you the response that I got at that time. I learned that though computers replaced some monotonous, some low-level repetitive work, but human work was not replaced by computers. What happened was we moved into other type of work which are more creative. So employment generation was never affected by that. But this industry, new type of industries, printing, 3D printers, this is a very interesting one. This is where the United States is finding out now that they're losing out. Why American industries are going abroad? Why China produces the cell phone. All these things are being produced by China now.
Yeah.
China does not have the designing capacity. So let me give you some figures about the cell phone. Okay. I started with this. This is a very interesting thing for us to use for many examples. Most of the cell phones, I think, that I have, are made in China, right? So general question is China making the money? The answer is no. Why? China makes only 2.5% or 3% of the value that we pay. These are expensive things. More than 30% goes to Apple. Why? for design and system integration. So this is what is going to happen. Our work, instead of working in the machine, mechanical engineer, I do not know, Ramanathan, are you mechanical or not? Anyone who's a mechanical engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer. I remember in the workshops, cutting, drilling, shaping, all of forging, all of these things that we had to do. We had to learn, and we had to teach others how to do. Useless now, completely useless. Because when you produce a product using those mechanical means, you produce stress at different places.
Yeah.
We want a product which should not have this undue stress so that it will break, fatigue and all that. And that can be done by 3D printer. The problem is the 3D printer is still very expensive. Okay, there are manufacturers who are willing to sell. We can buy the 3D printers. And after that, we'll start making our own 3D printers. And then we should be, this is where we should be moving into, in my view.
Okay.
Using 3D, and that's where our advantage also, because we do not have too many factories. Our factories are still using manual tools, general purpose tools, few special purpose tools, but not robots, not integrated system yet.
Yeah.
So we can, this is leapfrog. If we move into that, leapfrogging, and we'll have advantage.
Thank you. Well received the answer. And so we have another question. I think as you don't have a lot of questions, I think I have to read the questions here. So
maybe I have bored people.
No. This question is from Indonesia, Professor. So Indonesia, I think, so I have to apologize for Mr. Sashika. I thought that is a lady, Sashika. No, it's a gentleman actually, Sashika. Sashika, sorry for the maybe telling you as she. Okay, anyway, so the second question from Wati Herma from Indonesia. I think you took an example also from Indonesia while you were presenting.
Yes.
Maybe she's having a good, maybe she or he is having a good idea about.
No, she Ramanathan and I know both of us. She was our student also at AIT and our good friend.
Yeah. Okay. She's asking actually R&D activities in Indonesia are mostly conducted by public research institute and somehow far from industrial needs. In other hand, many of the private industries do not do the R&D activities in Indonesia. So her question one, what is the easy way for the government to help this situation in order to achieve the economic competitiveness of the country? So question number two, if I ask the second question as well, is it okay, Professor? Or are you going to answer the question one?
First one, I'm going to say to Wati, if Wati can hear me, that's all I have said in my chapter, in my part 5 and part 6, what we have to do, what the government has to do. And I know, and as I said, that I'm not criticizing Indonesia or Sri Lanka or any country for what is happening. These are the predicaments that we have, and we have to get over those and somehow improve that situation. And I said, I gave a long laundry list of commitments that we have to get, things that we had to do. So there's no one sentence answer to that. But I would be very happy to talk to Wati.
So second part of the question, Professor, the politics is very expensive and their activities never end. How do you engage the politicians for achieving the sustainable economic development of a country?
Yes.
So that's the question,
But that's a question that I have difficulty to answer.
Yeah.
Because I myself do not know. I tried, Ramanathan knows, I tried in many countries to get the politicians involved. And I found out from Dr. Che that this cannot be bottom up, it has to come from top down.
Yeah.
If you can convince the topmost person. And so I tried, and Ramanathan knows, a couple of times I went to Bangladesh to convince the former president at that time that he has to do something with this, but did not succeed. But one positive sign, I should say, that we did succeed in Malaysia. Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad listened to Che. He gave us an appointment and we met with Mahathir. The appointment was for only half an hour or so. But after he talked a few minutes with Dr. Che, he canceled all his appointments and stayed with Dr. Che, asking questions and getting replies for more than half a day because he was interested. And you see Malaysia has progressed a lot because there was some support from the highest level. In other countries, so I'm doing this webinar and Wati, if she's listening, I suggested to Wati, and I'm going to suggest to you, Samantha,
Yeah.
that I am prepared to speak one more time. If you can get some of the political leadership, join the webinar.
Yeah.
Well, let him blame me so that they cannot blame you.
Yeah.
And give this message that these are the things that you have to do.
Thank you. Okay, so
And I make that same offer to Indonesia also, that
Yeah.
I'll come back for one more time if you can get the politicians together, and I will speak. And let them be angry with me, that's all right.
Thank you, Professor. So we have another question from Islam. I think Mr. Right, Islam. So the first part is a comment, right? Thanks for the comprehensive coverage of the topic. Okay. So do you think another factor, that is the commitment and support from technological big brothers complemented the effort of South Korea to achieve their vision? Probably. Now, the type of support may not be available to the countries today.
Yes,
I agree 100%. That's why I said, South Korea had a very unique situation. They had a good model, but they also had support from the United States. Very strong support from the United States. But South Korea also did something which put us in difficulty because of their success. Now, nobody wants to support in technology because they see if they support. Yeah. As I said very plainly to you, that we cannot expect support from our competitors. When we present plans, when we want to do something to compete with their enterprises, with their economies, we cannot expect them to support. So we have to do it ourselves. That's why my last remark was, do it ourselves. And I was very happy this morning when I saw those incredible things being done in Sri Lanka. The automobile, which you can sell to the billionaires, $1 million worth automobile that they're producing and can sell to the millionaires. Sure, why not? And in the digital area, you may be able to come up with something which you can sell. And this is from your own efforts without the support. Because when you want to take support from others, this is not going to be very useful, I think.
Yes. Are there any
My frank opinion, I'm sorry. I do not know whether there is a...
So any other question? I think making the...
You missed the first question. Yes,
again.
There's a question on the top.
Which one is that?
That was there from, I think, before we start actually.
Yeah.
That's why I did not take it without maybe listening to the professor. I think we can't ask questions now.
He would have read the book.
Huh?
You would have read the notes given earlier.
Maybe, right? As a person, I think I know this particular gentleman.
Okay.
Anyway, he's actually putting a note, Professor. In general, all what we discuss here in some way or other falls directly or indirectly, but significantly under state policy. If the state policy is a bottleneck and there's a grave need to change state policies to support industry, how can it be done and who needs to pioneer such move? So that's the question.
The politicians.
Yeah. So that maybe you can't answer it.
Could you please rephrase that question a little bit
No, that's why I did not.
so that
I did not take this, because you can't answer this, and maybe a bit that is moving a bit.
It's a little bit of complicated way of presenting.
Yeah, beyond the content. That's why I didn't take it actually.
Sorry.
Yeah. Normally following the exact policies of the moderator, I did not take it because I have the right to omit the question. So anyway, so those are the questions actually we had, Professor. I think if we don't have many other maybe concerns, comments, so I think we can conclude the session. Any other comment from any panelists or views? I think shall we then wind up?
No, we are about 40 minutes behind the schedule.
Yeah. I must thank actually. So as we don't have any vote of thanks, I think Shalini is going to give a small remark on that. But anyway, as the maybe the organizer of this particular seminar, I must thank Professor Nawaz Sharif and your time so you spend on behalf of our business community and SLIIT staff. So then I must thank again for my supporting team actually from Professor Rama from Australia and Pial from Sri Lanka on behalf of our business community. And my team here, Nipuni, Nilmini, and Dilipa, Dilum, Shalini, and all these people supported me actually comprehensively from the very beginning. So thank you. And again, I must thank for the people who stayed from the beginning to the end, right? So there are a couple of, I think, people I could see that they are waiting from the very beginning to the end. Thank you for your patience. And because even we had some technical issues as we are connecting Professor from America, so we had some technical issues as well to connect him. So it's still, so you were there with us. Thank you. Thank you for that patience. And so with all, I conclude my maybe word of thanks as well. Shalini, it's over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So with that, we shall officially conclude this webinar. And once again, thank you everyone for attending it. And we really hope that you learned and you learned a lot from this session. So hoping to see you on another day. Professor Sharif also already agreed to do another session if necessary, right? So hopefully, I'm sure we'll be having another one of these sessions. So see you there as well. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful night. And good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramanathan. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sharif. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night to others.
Thank you, Prof. Sharif. Good night.
Good night. Good night, Professor Sharif. Oh, sorry. Good day, Professor Sharif.
Yes.
It's still morning for you, yes.
Good day, Sujiv, also from Sujiv and Nasrul. Okay, from you.